In the glittering halls of Victorian high society, a dark obsession took hold, an invisible epidemic that whispered through drawing rooms and medical chambers alike. This is the story of ether addiction, the intoxicating secret that destroyed reputations, families, and empires. Welcome to Evolution History Hub, where the past reveals its most shocking truths. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we uncover the ether addiction that destroyed Victorian high society. Settle in. The fire in the marble hearth has burned low, and the room smells faintly of smoke and lavender polish. You draw the shawl closer around your shoulders and breathe through the ache that lives somewhere between your ribs and your throat. Outside, the fog presses against the window panes, a slow, grey tide that seems to carry the city's heartbeat in its drift. The gaslight flickers in the corner, casting soft halos on the wallpaper's gilt roses. In the half-light, your reflection in the glass looks younger than you feel, but there's a tremor in the hands folded neatly in your lap. The day has ended, though the night feels unfinished. A tray of untouched tea sits cooling on the sideboard, the scent of bergamot fades beneath the sharper sweetness of ether. You have measured the hours since supper not by the clock, but by the weight of want. Somewhere in the drawer beside you lies a small glass vial, its contents dwindling to a thin shimmer like melted frost. You know precisely how much remains. Enough for one dream, perhaps two, if you are careful. You close your eyes and listen. The house is nearly silent now. The maid has banked the fires, the cook has gone to her quarters below, and the distant rattle of a hansom cab fades along Harley Street. All that remains is the soft tick of the mantel clock and the whisper of your own breath, slow and unsteady. It wasn't always this way. Once evenings meant conversation, laughter echoing against the high plaster ceilings, the rustle of silk gowns and the polite clink of crystal. Your husband's colleagues, surgeons, scholars, men of ambition, would linger after dinner, their voices filled with conviction as they debated new surgical methods, antiseptics, and chloroform vapor ratios. You used to sit near the fire, listening, your head light from the faint whiff of ether that hung about their coats. A curiosity, they called it then, a marvel that stilled pain and quieted fear. You remember the first time you inhaled it, the winter of '69, the same year influenza carried him away. You'd been sleepless for weeks, pale and hollow from mourning. He had left behind more bottles than letters, and one night, in desperation, you uncorked the smallest of them. The smell was oddly clean, sweet metallic, a little like pears soaked in snow. You soaked a handkerchief, held it close, and felt the world tilt toward light. For a few minutes, the ache of grief lifted. The air brightened, and every sound seemed wrapped in velvet. Tonight, as you rise from the armchair, your body moves through familiar ritual. You cross to the dressing table, the floorboards creaking faintly beneath your slippers. Your reflection follows. A pale figure framed in gaslight, hair pinned in tidy curls, the faintest hollows beneath your eyes. You open the top drawer, fingers brushing the cool glass. The vial glints faintly half full, 2 shillings worth of peace. You uncork it slowly, careful not to spill a drop. The scent rises at once, cold and sharp, but oddly inviting. You fold a linen handkerchief, pour a modest measure, and press it gently to your lips and nose. The vapor greets you like an old friend. At first, there is only stillness. Then warmth spreads through your chest, radiating outward like lamplight diffusing through fog. The edges of the room soften. The gaslight becomes a star underwater. You feel yourself float, not upward exactly, but inward, into the quiet space where thought unravels into color. For a moment, there is no London, no endless fog, no letters of condolence, no delicate balance between propriety and need. There is only the hum of your pulse, the faint sweetness on your tongue, and the illusion of weightlessness. But the body remembers what the mind forgets. A minute later, the stillness quivers. The warmth turns fragile. You lower the handkerchief, breathing shallowly, and the floor seems to tilt beneath your slippers. You sit again, spine straight, eyes half open. The world continues to shimmer, but the calm begins to thin like mist in a draught. You think of the invitation lying on your escritoire. Lord Melbury requests the honour of your company at his grand masquerade, Saturday next, at 8 o'clock. The ink is embossed, the paper heavy with perfume. Everyone who matters will be there, the Ashcrofts, the Langleys, perhaps even Dr. Prentice, who spoke so eloquently in the Lancet last month about the feminine temperament and its susceptibility to nervous exhaustion. You imagine his expression if he could see you now, inhaling either like a parlour game. In the street below, a newsboy calls out the evening edition. His voice is muffled by fog, but you catch fragments: railway expansion, cholera returns, Lady Pembroke scandal. The world churns indifferent. You glance at the clock, 11:10. The bottle stands on the dressing table, glass catching the fire's faint glow. Its presence comforts and accuses in equal measure. You know the chemist on Bond Street keeps a fresh stock, 1 ounce for 2 shillings or a half pint for 9. But to buy more means questions, smiles, explanations. Already, you suspect he looks at you too long when you enter, his gaze sharp behind the spectacles. You rise and pace to the window. Outside, gas lamps tremble through fog like distant constellations. The snow that fell earlier has turned to slush, and carriage wheels drag it into grey ribbons. A woman passes below, wrapped in furs, her laughter carried by the cold air. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, the river moves, a dark artery threading the city's heart. Your breath clouds the glass. For a moment, you imagine opening the window, letting the air rush in, clearing the room of its sweet poison. But your fingers hover and fall away. The thought itself feels treacherous. You sit again. The room, though warm, feels vast. The silence begins to thicken, pressing at the edges of your mind. You reach for the silver locket at your throat, his locket, and thumb it open. Inside, the tiny portrait has faded, the colors blanched by time. His eyes, once kind, seem to look past you now. You close the clasp and exhale. Downstairs, the grandfather clock strikes midnight. 12 clear tones. You count them without meaning to, each one a small tether to the world. When the last echo fades, you pour another few drops onto the cloth. The rational part of you protests. Enough, Eleanor, sleep will come on its own. But the whisper is faint, and the night is long. The second breath is deeper. The effect swells at once, warmth returning, vision brightening, the faint hum of euphoria beneath your skin. The air tastes faintly metallic, like snowflakes on the tongue. Somewhere in the haze, a memory stirs. A ballroom, a waltz, your husband's hand steady on your waist, the rustle of satin and laughter. You feel it all again for the span of a heartbeat, and then it fades. When you come back to yourself, the fire has burned to embers. The air is colder now, tinged with soot. Your handkerchief lies crumpled in your lap. The vial, still uncorked, reflects a single thread of lamplight. You feel your pulse flutter, quick and uneven. You draw a slow breath. Your temples ache faintly, your throat feels dry. You know these signs, the body reclaiming its territory after the brief surrender. You press a hand to your chest until the rhythm steadies. On the escritoire, a stack of letters waits to be answered: invitations, condolences, requests for patronage. You promise to sponsor the Children's Hospital fundraiser next month, to host another musicale. Society expects its widows to remain graceful, charitable, ever composed. You have become adept at the performance, powder over pallor, laughter over longing. But the cost grows heavier, measured not in coin, but in the space between each breath. You rise, cross the room, and draw the curtains. The fabric sighs against your fingers, thick and cool. Behind it, the window pane glows faintly from the street lamp below. You can almost hear the city breathing. The hiss of gas jets, the distant clop of hooves, the whisper of wind against chimney pots. London never truly sleeps, it merely dreams in smoke. You think of tomorrow, the errands, the dress fitting, the endless chatter about Lord Melbury's masquerade. You will wear the black silk with the jet beading, respectable, subdued. And perhaps borrow a mask from Mrs. Harcourt, who prides herself on her Venetian collection. You will laugh when expected, dance once or twice, and no one will notice the tremor in your hands. Still, a question lingers, low and persistent. What happens when the vial is empty? You could send the footman with a note to the chemist, of course. Or feign a headache and visit Harley Street yourself. Yet even as you plan, you sense a shift, a subtle dread beneath the calm. The thought of absence feels almost physical, like a tightening in the lungs. You move to the mantel, rest your palm against the cool marble. The carved cherubs look down with indifferent serenity. In the hearth, the last ember cracks softly, releasing a wisp of smoke. It smells faintly sweet, almost like the vapor still clinging to your skin. The hand that holds the vial trembles now, not from fear exactly, but from the quiet knowledge that each drop spent brings you nearer to a reckoning. Outside, the fog thickens, swallowing the lamplight entirely. The city vanishes, leaving only your reflection in the glass, blurred, luminous, and faintly unreal. You whisper to no one in particular, just until the ball. The words dissipate before they reach the walls. The mantel clock marks 12:30. You return the vial to its drawer, wrap it carefully in a square of linen, and close it with a soft click. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, you will rest. You will drink the valerian tonic instead, or take a walk in Hyde Park if the weather allows. Perhaps you will even sleep without it. The thought comforts you enough to lie down. The bedsheets are cool against your skin. The pillow smells faintly of starch and lavender. You fold your hands over your chest and listen to the wind curling around the chimney. The rhythm steadies, slow and hypnotic. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls one. You drift between waking and sleep, the room dissolving into a soft blur of gold and grey. The last conscious image is of light, not the gas lamps of London, but the pale inner brightness that the vapour brings, that fleeting promise of weightless quiet. When sleep finally comes, it is thin and restless, like fog that never quite lifts. Morning comes quietly, or rather, it tries to. The light that seeps through the curtains is not sunlight at all, but a pale, ashen haze that belongs more to coal smoke than to dawn. You wake with the faintest throb behind your eyes, as if the world has tilted ever so slightly in the night. The fire in the grate has gone cold. The sheets hold a chill, and the smell of ether still lingers, sweet and distant, like a memory you can't quite wash away. You lie still, listening. The maid is stirring downstairs, her soft clatter of porcelain echoes faintly through the floorboards. Outside, the city groans to life, carriage wheels grinding over frozen mud, costermongers calling out their wares, the far-off whistle of a train. Somewhere near Harley Street, a telegraph clicks its restless code, carrying news across the miles. You sit up slowly. The movement brings a wave of dizziness, the familiar kind that fades if you breathe through it. Your mouth tastes faintly metallic. You reach for the glass of water on your bedside table and sip carefully, feeling the dryness ease. On the dressing table, a folded newspaper waits, the Morning Post, delivered an hour ago. The maid must have placed it there before lighting the fire. You draw it into your lap, brushing away a thin film of soot from the paper's edge. The headline is small, easy to overlook among news of Parliament and the Queen's upcoming appearance at Covent Garden. Dangers of etheric habit among gentlewomen, a growing social concern. You read the words twice before they fully register. The article is clipped, clinical, 4 brief columns attributed to an unnamed correspondent citing the Lancet. It speaks of nervous afflictions among women of refinement, of a growing dependency on artificial exhilarants, of cases observed in Mayfair and Belgravia where ether, chloroform, and opium tinctures have been employed not as medicine but indulgence. A thin line of unease threads through your chest. You've read such things before. Murmurs in the medical pages, whispers among physicians' wives, but never stated so plainly, never with the suggestion of scandal. The text continues. It has been remarked by several leading practitioners that this new form of dissipation, while lacking the vulgarity of the opium den, poses no less a danger to the mind and constitution. Among the fairer sex it appears most insidious, cloaked as treatment for hysteria or sleeplessness, yet leaving its subjects pale, tremulous, and withdrawn. Society would do well to look more closely at its own drawing rooms before casting judgment upon the East End. You read that last line again, the words pulsing in rhythm with your heartbeat. Look more closely at its own drawing rooms. You lower the paper, the room suddenly too bright, too still. The embers in the grate crackle faintly as the maid enters with a tray of breakfast, toast, marmalade, a small dish of eggs, and a fresh pot of tea. "Good morning, madam," she says softly. Her name is Clara, 19, with fair hair pulled tight beneath her cap. She sets the tray on the table, fussing with the napkin. The weather's dreadful again. "Thick as soup," they say. You murmur a polite thanks. The sound of your own voice feels strange in the air. Clara hesitates, glancing toward the newspaper. "Beg pardon, ma'am. The Post says something terrible about the chemists, doesn't it, Mrs. Weatherby told Cook that some of them are mixing bad spirits into their tonics. Killed a lady in Bayswater, they say." You force a smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Gossip travels faster than truth, Clara. Best not to listen. She nods quickly, embarrassed, and withdraws. When the door closes, you let the smile fall. The article still lies open on the bed, ink smudged faintly where your thumb touched the margin. You trace the date, January 14th, 1874. It feels heavier than it should, as if the weight of time itself had shifted by a few ounces overnight. You rise, draw your shawl around your shoulders, and cross to the mirror. Your reflection looks back, calm, composed, only a little pale. The faint tremor in your hand is barely visible now. You smooth the front of your dressing gown and tell yourself the headline means nothing. The world thrives on little scandals. By next week, they'll be writing about the new railway or Lady Pembroke's indiscretions again. Still, something in you stirs, a quiet, restless awareness. At 10:30, your carriage waits outside. The morning fog is so thick you can barely see the horse's ears. You draw on your gloves, adjust your veil, and step into the chill air. The scent of coal smoke mingles with damp wool and iron. "Bond Street, if you please," you tell the driver. He tips his hat and the hansom lurches forward. The streets are half hidden, spectral, figures emerging and vanishing like ghosts. At the corner by Hanover Square, a lamplighter moves through the haze, ladder slung over his shoulder, flame bobbing like a small, determined star. You pass the familiar shop fronts, milliners, booksellers, chemists, each blurred by fog. When the carriage stops, the sign above the door reads, Thompson and Liddell, dispensing chemists and druggists. The bell above the door gives a single, delicate chime as you enter. Inside, the air is warm and dry, smelling faintly of camphor and beeswax. Rows of glass bottles gleam behind the counter, cobalt, amber clear. A small brass scale sits polished to a mirror's shine. Mr. Thompson himself appears from the back room, spectacles glinting, his white hair immaculate. Mrs. Whitcomb, he says with his usual restrained cordiality. A pleasure as always. How may I be of service today? You offer a practiced smile. A small replenishment, if you please, the usual measure. He hesitates a fraction too long. Either, madam? Yes. For restorative use. Dr. Beaton recommended it some years ago, as you may recall. He nods, but his gaze lingers. Of course, though I must mention, there's been some chatter in the papers lately. Certain gentlemen in Parliament are muttering about restrictions on volatile substances. Fear of misapplication, I suppose. I read something of the sort, you reply lightly. It all sounds rather exaggerated. Perhaps, he allows. Still, I've been advised to keep better account of my sales. For the record, then, shall we say 2 ounces? 3. You hear yourself say. He measures in silence, the faint clink of glass echoing in the quiet shop. The liquid gleams colorless and cold as he pours it into a narrow vial, then seals it with wax and paper label. The label reads simply sulfuric ether for external or inhalatory use. Price 6 shillings. When you pay, the coins feel heavier than they should. You tuck the parcel into your reticule and turn to go. As you reach the door, his voice follows softly. Do take care, Mrs. Whitcomb. The season's been hard on many, and not only the poor. Outside, the fog swallows you whole. You walk the few blocks to Brook Street on foot, the vial a small, cool weight against your palm. The air smells of soot and damp wool. Through the haze you catch glimpses of others. Shopgirls with baskets, a doctor in top hat and gloves, a child clutching a newspaper half her size. London moves as it always has, endlessly, impersonally, alive. Yet something has shifted, you can feel it. At home, the drawing room feels different too, larger, emptier, as if it's listening. You set the vial on the mantel and unpin your hat. The ticking clock sounds louder than usual. You move through the room, touching familiar things, the armchair's worn velvet, the ivory piano keys, the brass latch of the window. Each feels slightly foreign, as though you've returned from a long journey. You pour a measure of ether into the cut glass vaporizer and pause. The scent rises, sweet, cold, exact. The temptation is immediate, instinctive. Yet the article's words return unbidden, pale, tremulous, withdrawn. You hesitate. Instead, you light the fire. The match flares bright, the wood hisses, and warmth begins to bloom again. You sit in your chair, hands folded, trying to recall the sound of your husband's voice. It comes faintly, like something remembered from a dream, for the nerves, Eleanor. Only when needed. But what is needed? The word seems slippery now, impossible to hold. That evening you attend tea at Lady Harcourt's. The drawing room is all gilt mirrors and conversation, a jungle of perfume and lace. Someone plays Chopin on the pianoforte, someone else recounts the latest rumor about a duchess and an opera singer. You smile when required, your laugh measured, your cup always half full. Then, from across the room, you catch a whisper. 2 women by the fireplace, their voices too low for courtesy, but not so low you cannot hear. Did you read the Post this morning? One murmurs. About the ether business. They say even ladies of standing are partaking. How dreadful. The other replies, with the kind of dread that hides fascination. Imagine, floating about like one of those poor souls in the East End. Their laughter rings like glass. You turn away, cheeks warm despite the cool room. The tea tastes suddenly bitter. The scent of perfumed jasmine, rose, and a trace of camphor tightens your throat. Later, at home, you stand before your mirror again. The fire behind you paints your reflection in amber and shadow. You unstopper the vial and hold it beneath your nose, breathing in deeply, but you do not yet inhale. You study your own eyes in the glass, clear, alert, but edged with something restless. The night outside hums faintly, snow has begun to fall again, soft against the window. You whisper, almost to the bottle, they don't understand. The first breath comes like forgiveness. Cool air floods your lungs, and the tension unspools. The firelight blurs, your pulse slows. For a moment, the laughter and the headlines vanish. There is only stillness, that fragile, crystalline hush that feels like truth. When the vapor fades, the quiet remains, heavier now, but not yet despairing. You cap the bottle carefully, hands steady. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the calm, a new awareness flickers. The world is changing, whispering about its secrets, naming its hidden comforts. And though the thought unnerves you, another part of you feels almost relieved. Perhaps you think you are not as alone as you believed. You bank the fire, draw the curtains tight, and sit by the hearth until the last flame curls into ash. The smell of smoke mingles with ether and winter air, and you breathe it in one more time before sleep takes you. Outside, London exhales through its chimneys. The fog drifts and reforms, carrying whispers of reform, of scandal, of unseen hungers. Somewhere, a new word is being written into the language of the age's addiction. And you, beneath your blankets, feel it begin. A spark too soft to see, but bright enough to change everything. You arrive at Lord Melbury's mansion as though floating through a dream, or perhaps a fever. The carriage door opens with a sigh, and the fog curls in, whispering secrets around your mask. Somewhere behind the silk and satin, your pulse hums like the wings of a trapped moth. The ether, faint but lingering, still clings to the inside of your lungs. You've inhaled only a whisper, enough to make the edges of the world glow softly, as though gaslight were refracted through water. Footmen in powdered wigs and gold, threaded livery bow as you pass. Your name is murmured, Mrs. Eleanor Whitcomb, and though they do not see your face, they know your silhouette, your carriage, your particular fragrance of lilac and lavender soap. Reputation is a fragile perfume, you wear it carefully tonight. Inside, the grand hall blossoms with color and heat. Candles flare along mirrored walls. The orchestra swells with a Strauss waltz that spirals through the air like champagne bubbles. Women in jeweled gowns glide across the marble floor, their laughter bright and hollow. Gentlemen in domino masks exchange murmured wit and clinking glasses. Every gesture glitters. Every word hides a shadow. You find your reflection in a tall gilt mirror, a ghost in silver silk. The mask conceals the fine tremor in your lips, but not the faint glaze over your eyes. Beneath the fan in your gloved hand, your fingers ache with the need for the cool comfort of the veil you left at home. Lord Melbury's masquerade is the season's event. The house newly renovated, every inch adorned with excess. Orchids trail from crystal vases. Gasoliers blaze overhead, their heat prickling your skin. The scent of beeswax and perfume mingles with something sharper, the faint medicinal bite of chloroform from the adjoining conservatory, where a fashionable young doctor has set up a scientific curiosity. Demonstrations of anaesthetic effects for entertainment. You hear murmurs about it as you ascend the staircase. They say Lady Wentworth swooned into ecstasy. It's harmless, you know, perfectly safe under supervision. A low laugh follows, silk and scandal intertwined. You remember your husband's study, the glass flask, the corked bottle, the soft cloth, dampened with ether. The way he'd watch you with clinical tenderness as you floated away, whispering, "There, my darling, let the darkness unlace your thoughts." Now, you stand at the landing of Melbury's ballroom, the music swelling beneath your feet, and realize how very far that tenderness has receded into the fog. A servant offers you champagne. You take it with a practiced smile. The bubbles sting your tongue, the sweetness is cloying. Around you, laughter shimmers like frost.
"Mrs. Whitcomb!"
How divine you look. Lady Pennington approaches in emerald velvet, her mask trimmed with feathers that tremble as she speaks. Her eyes, bright and restless, flicker from your gown to your gloved hands. I was certain we'd lost you to mourning entirely. One can only light so many candles before it becomes dreary. You incline your head, the motion precise. Morning fades, as all things do. She laughs too loudly, and yet it leaves its perfume on us forever, doesn't it? Do come see the conservatory later. Melbury has outdone himself. There's a physician performing miracles with ether. You must, you simply must. Your heart gives a small, traitorous flutter. I shall, you say softly. The evening drifts. Music blurs into voices, voices into heat, and the heat into a kind of shimmering numbness. Couples waltz past, their skirts a tide of color. A man dressed as Apollo bows and kisses your hand. His breath smells faintly of brandy and regret. Another offers a compliment about your eyes, eyes he cannot truly see, but you are watching the door to the conservatory. You can feel its presence even before you step inside. The cool draft of air, the promise of escape. When you finally enter, the change is immediate. The conservatory is dimmer, quieter, filled with palms and orchids glowing pale under glass. A small crowd has gathered around a young doctor in a black waistcoat. His sleeves are rolled to the elbow, a gleaming glass inhaler rests on the table before him. A young woman reclines nearby, smiling drowsily, her fan fallen from limp fingers. Observe, the doctor says, his tone casual, urbane. A momentary surrender of the senses, no danger, merely pleasure. The mind unburdened of its mortal weight. A ripple of amused gas passes through the spectators. You move closer, the the scent of ether wrapping around you like a lover's breath. The doctor glances up, meets your eyes, and smiles. Would you care to experience it, madam? For a moment, you feel every eye upon you, masked, curious, hungry. The polished surface of society hides its vice poorly. Your pulse trembles in your throat. I have. You murmur, voice steady as porcelain, and I assure you, it is a most delicate art. A few titters of laughter, someone murmurs, of course she has. You turn away before they can see your hands shake. Outside the conservatory, the corridor is empty. The air is cooler here, and the fog presses faintly against the tall windows. You find a small antechamber lit by a single candle and close the door behind you. For a moment, the silence feels like mercy. You lean against the wall, close your eyes, and exhale. Your skin tingles with withdrawal, the tremor beneath your ribs, the dull ache in your temples. You know the pattern now, the sweetness, the shimmer, the descent. How the body pleads when denied. In your reticule, you keep a lace handkerchief folded around the faintest trace of ether. Enough to scent, not to use. You unfold it slowly. The perfume rises cool and ghostly. You breathe it in, not fully, just enough to steady the tremor. The world softens, the candlelight blooms like a halo. Your reflection in the nearby mirror seems to breathe with you. You whisper, to no one, only a moment. You do not hear the door open until it is too late. Eleanor. The voice is low, masculine, uncertain. You turn sharply, the handkerchief slipping from your grasp. It is Dr. Alaric Rowe, your late husband's former apprentice. His mask is simple, his expression unreadable in the candlelight. He has the same clear eyes you remember from the operating theatre, the same faint scent of antiseptic and tobacco. I didn't mean to intrude, he says. I saw you leave the ballroom. You try to smile. Trouds worry me, doctor. You know how I am. He studies you, the way a physician does, quietly, carefully. Then his gaze flicks to the fallen handkerchief. He recognizes the faint sheen of moisture, the ghost of vapor. You've continued the treatment, he says softly. You laugh too lightly. Treatment? Oh no, merely a comfort. A familiar scent. We all have our little indulgences. Eleanor, he begins, not Mrs. Whitcomb, but Eleanor. You know it's dangerous. Ether isn't a tonic, it's a thief. It takes the soul in whispers. You feel the words strike like cold rain, and yet, you murmur, I sleep. A silence stretches between you, heavy as velvet. Outside, the waltz swells again, muffled through the walls. 1,000 people dancing, unknowing, uncaring. He takes a step closer. Let me help you. You meet his eyes and see pity there. That is worse than scandal. Pity is the first death of dignity. No one can, you whisper. Not anymore. Then, because you cannot bear his gaze, you sweep past him and out into the corridor. The music greets you like a tide. Your head swims. The ether's echo still hums faintly in your blood. As you rejoin the masquerade, the masks seem to turn toward you, all smiling, all knowing. You smile back, perfectly poised, and move through the crowd as though gliding through a dream. The chandeliers shimmer, the laughter ripples, and somewhere beneath it all, the steady beat of your heart falters. Not from weakness, but from longing. Longing for that first perfect breath, the one that made the world shimmer with light. You do not yet know that the craving will follow you home, through the grey hours before dawn, that tonight's gentle inhale will not be the last. For now you dance, and London, vast and glittering beyond the windows, breathes with you. The fog, the gaslight, and the faint, invisible perfume that curls from 100 hidden bottles in rooms just like yours. The masquerade ebbs like a tide at dawn. By the time you leave Lord Melbury's mansion, the fog has thickened to a pale soup, and the last waltz still trembles faintly through the glass doors behind you. You descend the marble steps, one hand trailing along the banister for balance. Beneath your mask, your breath comes quick and shallow. The faint whisper of the ether still sings somewhere in your pulse. Your coachman bows as you emerge. Home, Mrs. Whitcomb. You nod, though the word feels foreign. Home, a house full of quiet, of mirrors, of closed doors and cooling ashes. The carriage lurches forward. Hooves clatter, wheels groan over cobblestones slick with mist. You sink into the velvet seat and let your head rest against the window. The gas lamps along Park Lane bloom into hylos as you pass. Each one seems to hum faintly. A golden pulse keeping time with your heart. You try to close your eyes. You tell yourself the evening went well. No one saw the tremor. No one whispered too sharply. No one guessed. You wore your mask perfectly, as you always have. And yet something inside you feels frayed, as though a seam has come undone. London at this hour is a living ghost. The carriages have thinned. The laughter from the gentlemen's clubs has dwindled to the occasional cough of a closing door. Somewhere, a watchman's bell tolls 4 times. The city exhales in long, smoky sighs. You open your reticule. The folded handkerchief is still there, faintly damp, faintly shining. You hesitate, then lift it to your lips. One breath, no more. Cool sweetness floods your senses. The sharp edge of reality softens. The weight in your chest lifts just enough to let you float. The lamps outside stretch into long golden ribbons. The fog curls in pale fingers that trace the glass, gentle, loving. You whisper to yourself, only a little, just to quiet the noise. But the noise does not quiet. It rearranges itself into music. Faint violins hum in the rhythm of the carriage wheels. A woman's laughter echoes from nowhere and everywhere. You recognize your own voice, younger, brighter, untouched by loss. For a moment, you think you see your husband's reflection in the window opposite you. The tilt of his head, the familiar smile. He looks as he did the day he first pressed the cloth to your lips. "It will ease the world," he'd said. "Only breathe." You reach out, fingertips brushing empty air. The carriage jolts, the vision dissolves. You blink, the fog outside replaced by the grey outlines of Mayfair terraces. Home is near. The coach slows before your gate, the white stone steps gleaming faintly in the lamplight. Your butler, Mr. Briggs, is waiting. A solemn figure in dark wool, collar buttoned to the chin. His expression does not change when he offers you his arm. "Late evening, madam," he murmurs, his tone carefully neutral. You allow him to guide you up the steps, every motion deliberate. Your feet feel light, detached. The hallway beyond is dimly lit, the fire in the drawing room long gone to embers. "Shall I prepare tea, madam?" You shake your head. No, that won't be necessary." "Very good, madam." "Shall I wake Mrs. Hale for your gown?" "Leave her be. I'll manage." He hesitates only a moment before bowing and retreating into the shadows. His footsteps fade, leaving you alone with the tick of the clock and the soft hiss of the gaslight. You move through the rooms like a drifting spirit, past portraits, past velvet curtains, past the faint scent of flowers long dead in their vases. Each echo of your heel seems too loud, too human. In your late husband's study, the air still holds his memory. The shelves lined with medical texts, the polished instruments in their velvet cases. A glass bottle sits on the desk, half filled, the stopper sealed tight. You stand before it for a long moment. The label reads sulfuric ether, for inhalation and tonic use. You touch the bottle's neck. Cool, smooth, almost comforting. The longing rises again. That hollow ache beneath the ribs, that need to blur the sharpness of thought. But another memory interrupts that. Your husband's hand trembling as he wiped your brow. His eyes, hollow with guilt. "You must stop, Eleanor. It dulls the spirit." He had said it only once. Then he had fallen ill himself, and you were left alone with the silence and the bottle. Now, standing in the hush of his study, you whisper to the empty room, "Oh, I only wanted to feel less." You uncork the vial. The vapor rises like perfume, cool and clean. The first breath burns slightly, but the second brings sweetness. The world ripples, the gaslight bends. The ticking clock begins to slow, each sound elongating until it feels like music. Your heartbeat softens into a distant drum. The shadows in the corners seem to breathe. You sit in his chair. The leather is cold beneath your gown. Through half-closed eyes, you watch the fog creep past the window. In its shifting greyness, shapes begin to form, streets and carriages and figures all woven from vapor. A masquerade still in motion, silent and weightless. You think you see yourself among them, a pale ghost in silver silk, gliding through the mist with a bottle in her hand. Somewhere deep in your mind, reason stirs. Enough, it whispers. Stop now. But the whisper is too far away. The ether hums louder, it smooths the edges of conscience, turns fear to velvet. You lift the cloth once more, and suddenly, the silence breaks. You are standing, or think you are, in a garden made of moonlight. The air glows faintly blue. Each leaf glimmers like glass. The city's fog has become a sea, rolling softly at your feet. Someone walks toward you through the haze. You recognize the gait before the face, precise, assured, familiar. Eleanor, your husband's voice, though you know it cannot be. He steps closer, features half-formed, eyes like reflections in water. He is smiling. "You've been lonely." "Yes," you whisper. "Terribly." He holds out his hand. "Then come back." The dream folds around you like a veil. For a heartbeat, you believe. You reach for him, but the air turns cold, and the figure shatters into mist. You gasp. The garden dissolves. The floor rushes up. When you wake, you are on the carpet beside the desk. The bottle lies unbroken a few feet away, the stopper rolled beneath a chair. Morning light seeps through the curtains, pale, indifferent. Your head throbs. Your throat burns. The sweetness on your tongue has turned bitter. You try to rise, but your limbs feel weighted. Each breath is shallow, scraping. You clutch the edge of the desk until the room steadies. On the wall, the clock ticks on, serene, merciless. You realize, faintly, that the bottle is half empty. By the time Mrs. Hale knocks softly at the door, the worst of the dizziness has passed. You sit upright, smoothing your gown, tucking a loose strand of hair beneath your ribbon. "Madame, shall I bring your breakfast?" You hesitate. "No, tea will suffice." "As you wish, madam." Her footsteps retreat. You look down at your hands. The tremor has returned, smaller now, but constant. You press your palms together to hide it. In the grey light of morning, your reflection in the glass cabinet looks older. The pallor beneath the powder, the faint bruising under the eyes. The ether has left its mark. You whisper to that pale double, "No one must ever know." The city outside is waking. Carriages begin to roll. Milk carts rattle. The cries of vendors drift through the fog. Life goes on, brisk and unbothered. And somewhere in Harley Street, another chemist opens his shutters and polishes his glassware, ready to sell a dozen more ounces of peace in a bottle. You know you will pass his shop before the day is done. You will tell yourself it is only for the nerves, only to sleep. You will smile as you hand over the coins, careful not to let your glove tremble. The city will not see the difference. It never does. Morning drifts in softly, like gulls unfurling over the city. Your parlor curtains are half drawn, and the London fog presses against the glass like a living thing. You sit by the window with your tea untouched, the steam winding upward until it mingles with the pale breath of your own exhale. It is a Sunday, though the bells of St. George's barely reach through the mist. The paper on your table carries the date February 8, 1874. Headlines murmur of Parliament, a railway strike, a scandal in Paris. The world moving steadily forward as yours turns in smaller and smaller circles. You trace the rim of your teacup. Your hands tremble only slightly. The effects of last night's indulgence linger as a dull ache behind your eyes. Not quite pain, not quite memory. From the drawing room below, Mrs. Hale's voice rises faintly, issuing instructions to the housemaid. The clatter of silver on china feels far away. You listen as though it belongs to another household entirely. The bottle on your husband's desk was nearly empty when you last touched it. You remember the way the vapor curled into the morning air, thin and beautiful and final. Now an unease hums beneath your composure. By evening you will need more. You dress with precision, corset, crinoline gloves. Each layer of silk and lace is a small fortress. When at last you pull your veil over your face, it feels like a promise the outside world shall not see the woman within. Mr. Briggs readies the carriage. The horses stamp impatiently in the cold. The fog thickens, turning every lamplight into a hello. You carry a small list written in your husband's old handwriting. Chemists of reliability. Names and addresses along Harley Street, Bond Street, and Bloomsbury. He had once kept the list for medical errands. Now it serves a different purpose. As the carriage jolts into motion, you steady yourself with a gloved hand on the window frame. London passes in a hush of hooves and distant voices. The city seems almost kind today, muffled, gentle, slow. You tell yourself it is not desperation, merely prudence. A lady cannot risk running out of her restorative, not with so many obligations pressing upon her. The first chemist's shop sits at the corner of Wimpole Street, its sign faintly gilded, C.F. Denholm, dispensing chemist and druggist. You step down into the faint scent of camphor, lavender, and something sharper beneath, the unmistakable sweetness of ether. The shelves gleam with bottles, each labelled in neat script, laudanum, chlorodyne, chloroform, ether, spirits of hartshorn. The man behind the counter recognizes you at once. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitcomb. Your husband was a fine physician, God rest him. What may I assist you with today?" Your smile feels fragile but convincing. "A small quantity of ether, Mr. Denholm, for my nerves. The air has been so heavy of late." He nods, already reaching for a bottle. "Indeed, madam, quite the weather for vapors. 2 ounces as before." "Yes, please." He wraps the flask in brown paper and ties it neatly with string. 2 shillings per ounce. "That will be 4. You count the coins with careful fingers. The metal feels cold, almost ceremonial. When he places the parcel in your gloved hand, you sense its weight, light, delicate, yet somehow immense. You thank him and step back into the fog. Your second stop is Warren's of Bond Street, a more refined establishment with mirrored walls and the faint sound of a pianoforte drifting from somewhere upstairs. A young clerk with perfect posture bows as you enter. "Something for the nerves, madam?" he asks smoothly, as though reciting a ritual. "Yes," you reply, "a restorative for sleeplessness. The same preparation my late husband once ordered." He brings out a small glass vaporizer, delicate as jewelry, with a silver cap and etched flowers around the base. "Very popular among the ladies of Mayfair," he says, his voice low, "for a gentle repose." You run your finger along the glass. The design is lovely, a distraction disguised as grace. "How much?" 10 shillings, madam." The vaporizer is reusable, of course. A shilling more for the ether itself. You nod, though a faint tremor crosses your breath. Wrap it, please. He bows again, his tone almost conspiratorial. A wise choice, Mrs. Whitcomb. One must take care in these restless times. When he returns with the parcel, his eyes flicker briefly, curiosity, perhaps, or pity, but his smile remains practiced. You leave before he can offer further conversation. By midday, the fog has thickened to a pearly grey. The smell of coal smoke clings to your clothes, to your gloves, to your very hair. You imagine the entire city breathing in the same invisible haze. The air is intoxicant, the sky is shared addiction. You instruct your coachman to take you through Hyde Park, a longer route home. The carriages move slowly, wheels muffled on damp gravel. Somewhere, a pair of children feed crumbs to swans that appear and vanish like ghosts upon the water. You close your eyes. The parcels in your lap feel warm, alive, as though whispering to you through the paper. When you finally return to your townhouse, the day has dimmed. The fog glows faintly in the gaslight, a soft, metallic sheen. Inside, Mrs. Hale greets you with a mild scolding wrapped in affection. You've been out too long, madam. The air is dreadful for the lungs. Come sit by the fire. You obey without protest. She sets your parcels aside, none the wiser. For a while, you listen to the fire crackle. The warmth feels almost unbearable against your chilled skin. You sip tea sweetened with honey, though you taste little. Your mind drifts to the vaporizer hidden in the folds of your cloak. The promise it holds, the silence it offers. Mrs. Hale hums softly as she folds linens. You'll feel better soon, madam, she says. You always do after a bit of rest. You smile faintly. Yes, after rest. When evening falls, you retreat upstairs. You light only one lamp, leaving most of the room in amber half shadow. The parcels wait on your dressing table. You unwrap the first. The vaporizer gleams like a secret moon. You unscrew its silver cap and pour a careful measure from the new bottle. The scent rises, sharp and sweet, like fruit peeled under cold steel. You hesitate, watching the liquid catch the light. There's a moment, brief, tender, when you almost set it aside. You think of your husband's journals, his warnings in the margins. Habit is the invisible chain of the mind. But then your hands begin to tremble. The ache in your chest deepens, that familiar hollow widening like a door. You lift the vaporizer. One breath, cool fire through your lungs. A bloom of light behind your eyes. The edges of the room soften. The ticking of the clock elongates into something musical. The mirror across the room reflects you as a figure half made of smoke. You lean back against the pillows. Your body feels impossibly light, as though gravity itself has grown tired. You think of the ballroom again, the masks, the laughter, the shimmering chandeliers. Only now, the faces blur into nothing. You drift. It is Dr. Rowe's voice that finds you in the half-dream. Her messes. Whitcomb, I've received troubling reports of fainting spells. You are sitting in his consulting room, or believe you are. The smell of antiseptic and leather fills the air. His eyes are kind, though his words weigh heavily. Either is a dangerous indulgence, he says gently. It deceives the body, exhausts the spirit. May I speak plainly? You nod, though your voice feels far away. It is not medicine you seek now, but escape. The words strike softly, like snow against glass. When you blink, he is gone. The room around you fades into your own. You are alone again, the vaporizer cooling in your hand. The night deepens. Outside, fog swirls against the window panes. The sound of carriage wheels grows distant, then stops entirely. You sit up, still drowsy but lucid enough to know what must come next. The bottle is not infinite. The supply will dwindle as surely as the winter light. If you are to maintain appearances, the dinners, the letters, the laughter expected of a hostess, you will need more. Not just from one chemist, but several. You make a plan: Denholm's on Monday, Warren's again next week, a new name from your husband's list by month's end. You will rotate your purchases, vary the amounts. No one will suspect. You press your hand to your chest, feeling the steady thrum beneath. The vapor has dulled its rhythm, softened its sharpness. A quiet resolve settles over you, not defiance, but surrender disguised as order. Later, you write in your diary. The words come slowly, neat and small. I find the ether a comfort when the hours grow heavy. I must keep it hidden. They would not understand. The world rewards composure, not confession. You blot the ink, close the book, and set it gently beside the lamp. The city outside sighs. A distant bell marks midnight. You draw the curtains, letting darkness fold over you like velvet. As you drift towards sleep, the faintest trace of ether still lingers in the air. A ghost of sweetness, a whisper of calm. You tell yourself, as you always do, just until morning. And then the world will begin again. Dusk drifts over the rooftops like smoke from an unseen fire. The fog is thinner tonight, pale and translucent. and the gaslights along Grosvenor Square flicker like slow, burning stars. You stand by the window of your sitting room, one hand on the velvet drape, the other resting on the sill. The house is quiet except for the rhythmic click of the clock in the hall, a sound that seems louder with each passing night. It has been a week since your last visit to Denholm's. The new bottle rests within the writing desk drawer, unopened. You tell yourself that this restraint is proof of your strength. And yet, every evening the silence grows heavier, as though the air itself presses closer. You have been waiting for a letter. For days, it has not come. Your sister Margaret, living now in Bath, had written last month, "I shall visit before the season begins. You mustn't spend another winter alone." But no post has arrived, and in your heart, you know, perhaps she will not come at all. You imagine her bustling about her warm little house, her laughter echoing down corridors filled with music and ordinary sunlight. She was always the stronger of you both. While you married a physician and learned the languages of restraint and composure, she chose simplicity. Garden walks, long letters, and a husband who built birdhouses in spring. You whisper her name into the air, Margaret. The word feels small, like a pebble dropped into still water. When Mrs. Hale brings supper, you can barely taste it. You push the potatoes around the plate, nodding at her chatter about the butcher's prices and the laundress's complaints. "You should have company, madam," she says at last, lowering her voice as though confiding something tender. The house feels lonely. You repeat softly, as if testing the word. "Yes, perhaps it does. I could ask Miss Lane to visit, or the vicar's wife." You raise a hand, smiling faintly. "No, I shall be quite content with my books this evening." She hesitates, her eyes searching your face for something she cannot name. Then she curtsies and withdraws, her footsteps fading down the hall. You wait until her door closes. Then, slowly, you rise. The writing desk creaks as you open it. The smell of polished wood mingles with something sweeter, the faintest memory of ether. Inside the drawer, beside your sealed letters and your husband's penknife, rests the bottle. Its glass catches the lamplight, throwing slender ribbons of gold onto the desk. You lift it carefully, feeling the familiar chill against your skin. But tonight, something in you resists. The quiet is too deep, too solemn. Instead of reaching for the vaporizer, you draw out a folded paper tied with a narrow blue ribbon, a letter half, written and long delayed. It begins in your own hand, "My dearest Margaret. The days grow shorter and the city feels hollow without you. I find my thoughts wandering often to Bath, to the garden behind your window, the scent of thyme and rose in the evening. How strange that I remember so vividly the sunlight when London seems made only of mist. Oh." You pause, reading what you wrote weeks ago. The ink has faded slightly. Then, with a deep breath, you take up your pen. "I have been unwell, though the physicians call it nervous exhaustion. The truth is more complicated. There are moments, whole hours, when I feel suspended between waking and sleep, when the world moves gently as if seen through water. I cannot tell whether it is healing or harm that keeps me this way. You would scold me kindly, I know. You would tell me to breathe the open air, to walk among the lilacs, to remember who I was before the world required stillness. Oh, Margaret, how does one return to herself when the self has dissolved so quietly?" You stop, staring at the words. The pen trembles slightly. The ink pools into a single dark spot on the page, blooming like a wound. Outside, the church bell tolls 8. The sound rolls over the square in slow, resonant waves. A sudden knock startles you. When you open the door, a figure stands framed by lamplight. Dr. Rowe, your husband's old colleague. His face is lined, his hat glistening faintly from the mist. "Forgive the hour," he says, stepping inside. "I was passing nearby and thought to call upon you. You've not answered my last note." You smile faintly. "No, I've been resting." His eyes, gentle but probing, take in the half-empty teacup, the faint smell in the air, the pallor of your skin. "Resting, yes," he murmurs. "You've lost weight. May I sit?" You nod, guiding him toward the fire. For a while, he speaks of ordinary things. His patients, the weather, the absurdity of new medical fashions. You listen, answering when required, though his words blur softly at the edges. At last, he sets his hands upon his knees and studies you carefully. "Eleanor," he says, "using your name as only a few still do. You know why I've come." The fire crackles. You look away. "I've seen what ether does," he continues gently. "It begins as ease, then silence, then need. You mustn't let it draw you under. I've only used it sparingly," you say, though even as you speak, your pulse stirs with unease. "It quiets the mind. It deceives it," he corrects. "It takes what little peace you have and trades it for numbness. Don't you remember your husband's own warnings?" You close your eyes. His voice fades to a murmur. I remember, you whisper. He sighs. Then promise me you'll stop. Let me take what remains of it away. For a long moment, neither of you move. The silence grows heavy between you, not hostile, but sorrowful. At last, you rise and walk to the desk. Your hand hesitates above the drawer. Then you draw it open and lift the bottle. The lamplight glimmers through it like pale amber. Dr. Rowe stands. May I? Your fingers tighten involuntarily. It's all I have left. His voice softens. No, Eleanor, it's what's holding you here. The room seems to tilt slightly, a delicate vertigo between surrender and longing. Then, slowly, you extend your hand. He takes the bottle gently, as though afraid it might shatter. For a moment, you almost reach for it again, but you do not. Instead, you whisper, keep it safe. I will. He tucks it into his coat. Eyes kind but wary, try to rest. The world is still waiting for you, though it may not seem so. After he leaves, the house feels strangely hollow, lighter, but echoing. You stand by the fire until the last ember fades. The room smells faintly of smoke and lavender oil. Upstairs, you find the unfinished letter still on the desk. You add one final line, I think I am learning to let go, slowly, quietly, as one might release a bird into evening air. You seal the letter, tie it with the same blue ribbon, and place it by the door to post in the morning. When you climb into bed, the sheets are cool, the silence almost tender. You stare at the ceiling, watching faint shadows ripple like water. For the first time in months, you feel the raw texture of the night, not dulled, not softened, but real. Your heartbeat sounds steady, patient, unclouded. And in that clarity, something fragile begins to stir, not quite hope, not yet, but its distant echo. Outside, dawn begins to stretch faintly over London's rooftops. The first light touches the window pane, pale and uncertain. You lie awake, neither asleep nor restless, suspended in the quiet space between. A farewell has been made, not to a person, but to a need. You close your eyes and let the morning breathe through you. The fog is thinning, and somewhere far off, a bird begins to sing. The morning begins with rain. Not the frantic kind that beats against the window panes, but a fine, almost silken drizzle, steady and unhurried, softening the edges of London as if to make parting easier. You sit in the carriage, gloved hands folded neatly in your lap, a small trunk beside you. Mrs. Hale has insisted on packing a shawl and 2 jars of preserves for the journey. The jars clink faintly with every cobblestone. Your destination is Yorkshire, where your sister's friend, Mrs. Lydia Henning, keeps a convalescent house by the sea. A quiet place. For the nerves. Dr. Rowe arranged it after his visit. He said the northern air would do you good, that the salt wind would draw colour back into your cheeks. You told him you would think on it. And now, here you are, the city already dimming behind you, its towers and chimneys swallowed by the mist. The hansom rattles past Euston Station, and you glimpse a cluster of newspaper boys calling headlines about the new Public Health Act and the expansion of the telegraph line to Calcutta. Progress marches on, even in the rain. Inside the station, it smells of wet wool, engine smoke, and iron. The great glass roof glistens like a cathedral dome. You purchase your ticket. 3rd class, though you could have afforded more. The woman behind the counter looks surprised. To Scarborough, madam, she asks. You nod. By way of York. That'll be £1 6 shillings, she says, sliding the ticket across. Her fingers brush yours, and you realize how cold your hands have become. You board the train. The compartment is narrow but clean, lined with dark mahogany and brass fittings. A faint vibration hums through the floorboards as the steam engine exhales outside, long, rhythmic sighs that echo through your ribs. 2 other passengers sit across from you, a young man in a railway clerk's uniform and an older woman knitting a pale grey shawl. Neither speaks. You settle into the corner seat and draw your shawl close. The scent of lavender still clings faintly to it, mingled with the ghost of something else, a sweetness that lives in memory, not in the fabric. You turn your face toward the rain-streaked window. When the whistle sounds, it pierces the morning like a thread pulled taut through cloth. The train lurches forward. At first, the movement unsettles you, the clatter of wheels, the rhythm too quick, too insistent. But as the miles begin to pass, a calm unfurls. London recedes into grey. The streets and squares dissolve into fields, then hedgerows, then wide expanses of open country. The smoke from the engine billows past the window like a private storm, carrying with it the scent of coal and damp earth. You watch the land change colour, the muted greens deepening, the soil dark and slick with rain. Sheep scatter on the hillsides, and far in the distance, a river winds like a silver thread through the fog. You think of Eleanor Whitcomb, the woman who once filled her drawing room with guests and candlelight, who floated between conversations with a practiced smile. She feels distant now, like someone you once read about, admired briefly, and then misplaced in memory. Hours pass. The older woman offers you a piece of bread wrapped in paper. You thank her softly and take a small bite. It tastes of yeast and salt. Long journey? She asks, eyes still on her knitting. Far enough, you reply. She nods, satisfied, and returns to her work. The quiet between you feels comfortable, like shared understanding. Through the window, you glimpse the industrial towns of the Midlands, smokestacks, narrow brick houses, and children running barefoot through the rain. In one field, a group of women hang laundry that billows like ghosts in the wind. You think of London's rigid etiquette, of tea poured at precise temperatures and whispers behind gloved hands. These women have no time for such performances. Their movements are rough, real. You envy them, quietly. By midday, the rain stops. Sunlight spills in pale ribbons through the clouds, lighting the carriage in shifting patterns. The clerk dozes against the glass, his cap tilted forward. The older woman hums faintly, her needles clicking a slow, steady rhythm. You close your eyes and listen. The sounds blend together, the rattle of wheels, the breath of the engine, the murmur of wind against the window pane. It is not silence, but something close to peace. When you wake, the train has stopped at a small rural station. Thirsk, the sign reads. A porter calls out destinations as he hauls luggage along the platform. Changing trains for Scarborough, you gather your things and step down. The air outside is sharp, clean, almost metallic. You can taste salt in it already, though the sea lies many miles east. At the refreshment stall, you buy a paper cup of tea, 1 penny, and cradle it between your hands. It's strong and slightly bitter, but its warmth anchors you. You think of the bottle that once sat in your desk drawer, its liquid cool and mercilessly sweet. The memory feels distant now, like a name spoken through water. The second train is older, wooden benches, coal dust on the floor. You find a seat by the window again, though the view is emptier here. Rolling fields, bare trees, the occasional farmhouse. A young governess with a sleeping child sits nearby. Across from her, a miner with suit on his collar reads the York Herald, its headline warning of alarming cases of either abuse among ladies of refinement. You freeze for a moment, eyes catching on the words. He mutters something under his breath and folds the paper away. You turn toward the window, the reflection of your face pale in the glass. For a brief moment, you imagine what it would be like to vanish entirely, to be one of those unnamed ladies in print, reduced to a cautionary tale, a symptom of modern decay. But the thought passes. You are not vanished yet. You are still moving forward, through the rain, toward something that might resemble healing. Evening finds you at Scarborough Station, the sky a bruised lavender hue. Seagulls cry overhead, their calls sharp and distant, carried on the wind. A hired carriage waits by the gate. The driver, an elderly man in a salt-stained coat, nods when you give him Mrs. Henning's address. As you ride along the coast, the landscape opens wide, the sea dark and immense, the air alive with brine. Waves crash against the rocks below, and the scent of salt and seaweed fills your lungs until it almost burns. You realize you are breathing deeply for the first time in months. Mrs. Henning's house stands on a rise overlooking the shore. A modest white structure with ivy climbing one side. A brass plaque by the gate reads, Larkspur House, private convalescence for ladies. A maid greets you with a lantern and helps you down from the carriage. Inside, the air smells of coal fires and lavender soap. The walls are painted cream, the floors polished but warm beneath your boots. Mrs. Henning herself appears from the parlor, tall, grey-haired, her expression both firm and kind. My dear Mrs. Whitcomb, she says, taking your hand. Ducker Rowe wrote to me. You are most welcome here. Thank you, you whisper. You'll find the air bracing, she continues, smiling faintly. And our schedule simple. Breakfast at 8, a walk before luncheon, reading or rest in the afternoons. We favor calmness, not cures, calmness, you repeat softly. The word feels like a promise. Your room overlooks the sea. You unpack your things slowly. A nightdress, a com, a single book of poems by Christina Rossetti. On the dresser, a small oil lamp flickers. You light it, and the flame reflects gently against the window pane. Outside, the tide is retreating, whispering across the sand. You draw the curtains halfway and sit by the bed. For the first time in years, there is no glass bottle hidden among your belongings, no scent of sweet vapor lingering on lace. Only the salt of the ocean and the faint perfume of lavender water. The silence feels unfamiliar, but not unfriendly. You wrap the shawl around your shoulders and rest your head against the cool glass of the window. Somewhere below, the wind hums through the reeds. The house creaks softly in response, as though exhaling with you. And for a long, steady moment, you feel almost weightless. Not because of ether's dreamlike haze, but because of the pure, simple fact of being alive. When Mrs. Henning knocks an hour later to say goodnight, you answer softly, "I think I shall sleep." She smiles. The sea has that effect. You nod, and when the door closes, you extinguish the lamp. The room fills with the sound of waves breaking against the cliffs. Slow, patient, eternal. You close your eyes. The motion of the sea mirrors the rhythm of your breath. For the first time in a long while, there is no drifting, no escape, only rest. The night folds around you like a shawl of dark velvet. Outside, the city exhales, the last carriages have gone, and even the gaslights across the street seem to dim in sympathy with your exhaustion. The clock in the hallway tolls once, the sound a warm brass hum that lingers through the wood of the walls. You are alone, but it does not feel like loneliness anymore. It feels like suspension, like something has lifted you out of time and left you gently swaying above the world. On your desk, the ether bottle glints under the low lamplight. It stands there almost reverently, hallowed in gold reflections, its curved glass distorting the flame's shape into something alive. The faint scent, even from here, curls toward you, sweet, cool, a whisper that promises peace. You rise without realizing it. The motion feels guided by something softer than will, like the way seaweed drifts when the tide changes. Your hand trembles as it closes around the glass neck of the bottle. The liquid inside sloshes faintly, as if it too is breathing. You pause. The room breathes with you. The wallpaper's pattern seems to pulse in slow rhythm, the lilacs blooming, receding, blooming again. The ether calls, but gently now. No hunger, no fear, just invitation. You uncork it. That first breath is a return. The cool vapor threads into your lungs, and everything widens. The air, your thoughts, the boundaries between furniture and self. The ceiling recedes until it feels infinite. The walls dissolve into pale mist. You feel yourself melting into a texture of stillness, as if the house has become a body that breathes with you. There is a hum beneath it all, faint, steady. The same tone you heard in the garden when you were a child, lying beneath the lilac tree, listening to the bees. You remember the taste of lemonade, the roughness of grass under your palms, the light trembling through leaves. You can almost hear your mother's laugh. For a moment you are her again. Both child and mother, giver and receiver of comfort. The hum grows warmer. It coils through your chest, not as sound but as feeling, a low vibration of belonging. You lean into it, and the floor seems to tilt, carrying you toward the bed. The air ripples like water around you. The lamp's flame bends sideways, as if pulled by some invisible tide. Shadows stretch across the walls, elegant and slow, their edges soft as silk. The world turns inside out. You are watching yourself from above now, lying on the coverlet, hair spread like spilled ink, eyes half open in wonder. In this weightless place, time loosens completely. The hours no longer tick, they sigh. Somewhere a bell rings, but it could just as easily be the sound of your heartbeat echoing in the ether. You think of nothing at all. You have never been this empty, or this full. The H that once hollowed your chest is replaced by the gentlest hum of existence, the way candle wax hums before it stills. You float. The ceiling ripples again. The lilac pattern on the wallpaper blooms outward, alive, spreading across every surface until the room becomes a vast garden under moonlight. You smell the flowers again, sweet, heavy, otherworldly. You can feel the cool petals brushing your cheek. A shadow moves among them, tall, graceful, familiar. You reach for it, and the scent of ether grows stronger, richer, like honey warmed in sunlight. The figure leans closer. Its eyes glow faintly, tenderly. "Rest," it whispers, but it is your own voice. You obey. The last thing you feel before the dark closes is the sense that you are falling, but softly, through lilac blossoms, through mist, through all the old versions of yourself. And somewhere, in the quiet that follows, London keeps breathing. You open your eyes, or something within you does. There is no ceiling now, no bed, no walls to hold the air in place. Only a sky the color of smoke and rosewater, and beneath it, a field of lilacs swaying in a breeze that feels like breathing itself. The air is cool and shimmering. Each inhale fills you with a sweetness so pure it almost aches. The flowers bend toward you as though they recognize you. Their stems pulse faintly, as if carrying light instead of sap. You walk, though you leave no prints on the ground. The grass bends and springs back unbothered, forgiving. The hem of your nightgown whispers against it, a soft, silk sigh that melts into the wind. Somewhere nearby, water trickles, a silver stream curls between the roots of a tree that gleams as though polished from within. You follow the sound, and the light changes. It is as if the air itself rearranges its color to suit your thoughts. One moment pale blue, another a soft lilac gray. Your pulse slows until it matches the rhythm of this place, a calm and unhurried beat. Every breath seems to draw you deeper into it, every exhale melting a little more of the weight you once carried. The tree ahead is enormous, its trunk smooth and luminous. Beneath it, the ground hums faintly. When you rest your hand against the bark, you feel a warmth there, alive, responsive. For a moment, you hear something behind that hum, words or maybe memories. You've always been here. The voice is your own, layered with echoes, calm and certain. Images flicker the attic of your childhood home, the smell of starch and paper, a window open to fog, the sound of your mother singing a hymn too low to carry through the hall. You see yourself at 10, clutching a lilac branch, promising silently that you'd never forget the feeling of being small beneath something endless. Now, here you are, not small, not large, not anything that could be measured. You sit by the stream, dipping your fingers into the cool, slow water. Ripples spiral outward, forming circles that shimmer like mirrors. For an instant your reflection appears, calm pale, your hair stirred by invisible wind. But behind you, in the reflection's distance, the outline of your London room faintly gleams. The mirror ripples hold both worlds, the one you left and the one you dream. You watch the two sway together, their borders blurring until the images seem to merge. The wallpaper's lilacs bloom across the sky. The flame of your lamp flickers among the flowers like a distant star. You feel yourself swaying again, not asleep, not awake, but balanced between. The hum beneath the ground deepens. It sounds like a slow heartbeat, patient, ancient. The flowers tilt toward its rhythm. When you breathe, they breathe with you. For the first time in years, your mind is quiet. So quiet that you can hear the small sounds of existence itself, a petal falling, a drop of water meeting another, the sigh of soil turning in its dream of spring. You could stay here forever, you think. There is no pain, no hunger, no clock ticking in another room, only softness and the steady warmth that feels like being remembered by the universe. And yet, faintly, from far away, you sense the pull of the waking world. A draft touches your skin, colder, rougher. The sound of a carriage wheel on cobblestone brushes the edge of your hearing. You turn back to the tree. Its glow is fading, though kindly. The lilacs are closing their petals, their light dimming as if dusk has come again. The voice returns, a whisper this time, barely more than breath. Rest first. Then remember. You nod without knowing why. You close your eyes and let the sound of the stream fill your head until it becomes something like rain. The lilacs sway, and with each motion, you feel yourself growing lighter, more transparent, dissolving into scent and sound. The world tilts. And then, the hum becomes the ticking of your clock again. The warmth becomes the weight of your blanket. The scent of flowers fades into the faint, familiar sweetness of ether. Your eyes flutter open. You are home. The lamplight is low and your breath fogs faintly in the chill. The bottle rests on its side beside you empty, but your pulse, slow and steady, tells you that you've been somewhere real. You lie still for a long time listening to the quiet. The house does not move, neither do you. And yet, deep inside, you can still hear the hum, softer now, tucked beneath your heartbeat, like the echo of a dream that does not end when you wake. Morning comes unwillingly. It does not burst through the windows as sunlight often does. It creeps, shy and grey, filtering through the gauze curtains in slow, uncertain beams. The air smells faintly of frost and something faintly chemical. The ghost of the ether still clinging to the silk of your pillowcase. You lie motionless, your pulse light and quiet in your throat, as though even your blood has forgotten how to move quickly. The world feels distant, muffled, as if wrapped in soft cotton. A faint clatter below tells you that the maid has begun the fire. The house shifts, boards creaking softly underfoot, and you imagine the warmth rising through the walls like the first breath of life after drowning. You open your eyes fully. The room is dim but beautiful, the kind of beauty that feels slightly haunted. Lace curtains tremble in the weak winter light. On your dressing table, the perfume bottles gleam like small, glass constellations. The mirror holds your reflection, pale and uncertain, as though the glass remembers a softer version of you from before. You sit up slowly. The air tilts. Your vision blurs just long enough for the edge of the carpet to breathe, the wallpaper's lilacs to pulse once, faintly, like a living thing. You close your eyes, breathe, and the world steadies again. A quiet knock. Then another. Mrs. Whitcomb. It's Clara, her voice cautious, the sort of voice one uses when addressing someone fragile or holy. You find yours, though it comes out as a whisper. Yes. Shall I bring tea, ma'am? You want to say no, that you wish only for silence. But habit answers for you. Yes, Clara. And the paper, please. The door clicks softly as she leaves. You draw your shawl around your shoulders and move to the window. Outside, the garden is pale with frost. The stone balustrade glitters faintly. Beyond it, the city begins to wake, faint hooves on cobblestone. A cart creaking, a milkman's call swallowed by fog. London always sounds the same at this hour, half asleep, half suffering. You touch the glass cold as marble beneath your fingers, and in the reflection you catch the faintest shimmer of last night's dream, the lilac field, the silver stream, the luminous tree. The image vanishes as quickly as breath. You whisper to it anyway. I remember. But Clara returns with the tray, delicate porcelain rattling softly, steam curling upward like the ghost of warmth. She sets it down and hesitates. Her eyes dart briefly to the bottle on your nightstand, the etched glass one lying empty. You see the flicker of concern before she forces it away. Shall I fetch more, ma'am? From Mr. De Vitons. A Mr. Doveton, your chemist on Harley Street. Always discreet, always precise. You pause. For a moment the question feels enormous, as though it carries the weight of all your choices. But then the cold air bites at your neck, and your hands tremble again, and you hear yourself answering gently, "Yes, Clara." Tell him I require another vial. She nods, relieved to be useful, and leaves without meeting your eyes. When the door closes, you sit by the fire and sip your tea. It tastes thin, distant, as though it has travelled too far to reach you. The newspaper lies folded at your elbow, but you can already guess what it will contain: political quarrels, small scandals, perhaps a notice of another society event you are meant to attend. You unfold it anyway. Your eyes drift to the bottom corner of the page, to a small article under medical curiosities. A theromania, a growing social concern. A recent report from the Lancet warns of increasing dependence among patients and society ladies alike. The substance, once prized for its miraculous effects in surgery, is said to induce a form of euphoria that may prove habit-forming. Physicians caution moderation, though admit the matter remains one of private conscience. You read the words slowly, tracing each letter as if it might accuse you. When you reach the end, you fold the paper and set it aside. The firelight catches the curve of your teacup. Your reflection wavers in it, pale, calm, untouchable. It should frighten you, but it doesn't. You rise, open the window a fraction. The cold rushes in, sharp and honest. You inhale deeply, the air clean and bitter, unsweetened by anything man-made. It burns your lungs, but it wakes you. For a moment, you almost feel like yourself again, the woman who once hosted dinners under glittering chandeliers, who once laughed too easily and wept too rarely. Then the tremor begins again. Subtle, delicate, a small shaking in your fingers that spreads like a whisper through your arms. You close the window quickly. The cold was too much. Your body knows what it needs before your mind does. The craving rises, quiet but undeniable, a tide beneath your ribs. You tell yourself you can wait until Clara returns. You tell yourself you are strong. But time has grown strange. Minutes become rivers, and each one carries you closer to that moment when relief will arrive in a small, familiar bottle. You sit again, and the hum from your dream flickers faintly in your chest. Softer now, almost kind. You whisper to it as you might to a prayer, just until tonight. The fire crackles. The frost brightens. London continues beyond your window, indifferent and alive. You close your eyes and rest your head against the chair's velvet back, letting the warmth rise and fade, rise and fade. A rhythm not unlike breathing. Evening again. The day has passed like a sigh, barely noticed. You have eaten nothing, though you pretended to nibble on toast when Clara insisted. The house moved gently around you. The clink of china, the dull sweep of broom bristles, the faraway hum of carriage wheels outside. It all felt like the world seen through glass, near but unreachable. Now lamps burn low. The smell of coal smoke and perfume drifts together in the hallway as you prepare for Lord Melbury's masquerade. Another night of masks and murmurs, where everyone laughs too easily and no one really listens. Clara stands behind you, fastening the row of tiny pearl buttons that run down the back of your gown. Her fingers are deft but careful, as though the fabric itself might bruise. "Will you wear the black silk mask, Mum?" she asks softly. You nod. Yes, it suits the evening. On the dressing table lies your new vial, fresh from Mr. De Vitons. The liquid inside glints faintly in the lamplight, a colour between honey and moonlight. Your name is written on a neat paper label, the ink slightly smudged from his careful hand. 2 shillings he had charged, paid without question. You told yourself you would wait until after the ball, that you would endure tonight as yourself, unclouded. But already your pulse has begun its restless rhythm, that thin quickness beneath the ribs. Your skin feels too tight, your breath too shallow. You reach for the bottle, the cork gives with a soft pop. The air fills instantly with that unmistakable sweetness, sharp and cool, like sugared frost. You close your eyes and hold your handkerchief over the mouth of the vial, letting it soak, then lift it gently to your lips and nose. The first breath is always the hardest. The body resists before it surrenders. Then comes the light. It spreads behind your eyes like dawn breaking underwater. The tremor fades, the cold eases. The mirror across the room blurs at its edges, then steadies, its surface gleaming as though alive. For a long moment, you simply stand there, suspended between two worlds, between ache and relief. When you open your eyes again, Clara is watching you through the mirror. Her mouth opens slightly, then closes. She smooths the skirt of your gown and murmurs, "You look very fine, ma'am." "Thank you, Clara." Her tone has changed, lighter now, almost tender. Perhaps she thinks you are well again. Perhaps she has seen too much and chosen to pretend otherwise. In this house, silence has always been a kind of mercy. You descend the staircase slowly, one hand on the polished banister. The marble floor below gleams faintly in the lamplight, a reflection of your own ghost. The coach waits outside, breath steaming from the horse's nostrils in the cold. The night smells of fog and lamp oil, of wet leather and distant chimney smoke. You settle into the seat, the door closing with a muffled thud. The driver flicks his reins, and the carriage lurches forward into the dim, yellowed streets. Through the window, London moves like a dream. Gaslight halos blur in the mist. The silhouettes of passers-by seem to glide rather than walk. Somewhere, a violin plays, faint, imperfect, a fragment carried on the damp air. You find yourself smiling without meaning to. The ball awaits. Lord Melbury's townhouse is ablaze with light. Chandeliers spill gold through the windows, painting the fog in shimmering tones. The front steps are crowded with cloaked figures, masks gleaming, laughter bright and brittle. Inside, warmth swells instantly. Perfume, sweat, the smell of wax candles burning down to their wicks. The orchestra plays a waltz soft but insistent. Lace fans flutter like white wings. Eleanor Whitcomb, the butler announces as you enter, and a few heads turn with polite curiosity. You move among them gracefully, the mask hiding more than your face. You nod, you smile, you answer small talk with gentle precision. The ether hums quietly in your blood, a current beneath the surface. It makes everything easier. Words come softly, laughter rings clear, the world glows with the edges smoothed away. Lord Melbury himself approaches, a tall man in a silver domino mask, the smell of brandy and cigars clinging to his coat. "My dear Mrs. Whitcomb," he says, bowing slightly. "London's winter grows tolerable when you grace us." You incline your head. "And intolerable when I do not, I'm sure." He laughs, pleased. Always the sharp tongue. "You must meet our guest, a doctor of some repute. From Edinburgh, I believe, a specialist in the new sciences of the mind." A young man steps forward, fair-haired, serious eyes, no older than 30. He bows, offering his gloved hand. "Dr. James Felton," he says. "An admirer of your late husband's work. His paper on ether anesthesia was required reading when I was a student." The word ether catches in your chest, fluttering like a trapped moth. "Wah," you manage. "Then you must know he was enthusiastic on the subject." The doctor smiles faintly. "Indeed. Too many of our colleagues are. I've lately written of its dangers, addiction, delusion, physical decay. There are cases." He stops himself, polite again. "Forgive me. Not a topic for such an evening." But the words stay. Addiction, decay, they circle your mind like faint bells. You excuse yourself, claiming the need for air. Outside, the balcony is cool and quiet. The city spreads below, veiled in smoke and gaslight. You rest your hands on the iron railing. The chill bites through your gloves, but you welcome it. From the ballroom behind you comes a swell of music, violins rising, laughter echoing off marble walls. For a moment, you feel it. The weight of everything that has changed since that first night you inhaled from the bottle. How small it had seemed, how gentle. How it had promised rest. You remember your husband's voice, soft in the dark, "Only a drop, my love." For the nerves, you close your eyes. The music fades, leaving only the faint sound of your own breathing. The mask grows heavy. You remove it slowly, letting the night air touch your face. In the window's reflection, you see yourself, elegant, composed, eyes glinting faintly under the moonlight. But something deeper flickers there too, not fear, not yet shame, just a quiet knowing. You whisper, "I see you." For a heartbeat, you think you see another version of yourself in the glass, pale, trembling, the handkerchief still pressed to her lips. But the vision passes. When you return inside, the ballroom blazes again, and the world resumes its gentle masquerade. Later at home, long after midnight, you stand before the mirror once more. The vial lies beside your jewelry box, half empty. The air smells faintly of lilacs again, or perhaps that's only the ghost of ether weaving through the room. You remove your earrings, your gloves, your mask. Each gesture feels like shedding layers of pretense. In the mirror, you study your face. The softness around the mouth, the faint shadows beneath the eyes. You tilt your head slightly, and for the first time in months, you look directly into your own gaze. Somewhere deep within, a thought stirs, small but persistent. This cannot last. You do not speak it aloud, you only breathe. Outside, the city hums on, the gas lamps burning low, the fog pressing close like an old, indifferent friend. And in that quiet, you feel the smallest flicker of resolve, not yet strength, not yet rebellion, but the beginning of something that sounds almost like a promise. Morning again, the pale, uncertain kind that hesitates before touching the city. You wake before the fire is lit. The cold air carries its own silence, fragile and transparent. Frost has crept in lacework patterns along the inside of the window panes. Each breath you take forms a small cloud that drifts upward and disappears. For the first time in months, your nightstand is empty. No glass bottle gleams there. No cork, no scent of sweetness, no promise of drift or lightness. Only the faint ring where the last vial once rested, a small circle of absence. You tell yourself this is what you wanted. You remember the words you whispered to your reflection before dawn, no more. They had felt brave when you said them, like a kind of prayer. But now, in the clear light of morning, they feel thin, too soft to hold back the tide that begins to rise beneath your ribs. Clara enters quietly, as she always does. She carries a tray with tea and toast, her breath misting faintly in the air. "Good morning, ma'am." "Good morning." Her eyes linger on the empty table beside your bed. You see the flicker of understanding, and perhaps approval, before she lowers her gaze. "I thought you might take your breakfast by the fire, ma'am." "It's a bitter one." "Yes," you say, your voice steady. "That would be nice." You move carefully, as though your body belongs to someone else. Your limbs feel heavy and light all at once, a strange contradiction that makes every movement uncertain. You sit near the hearth while Clara tends the fire, the sound of kindling crackling like small bones. The warmth creeps outward, slow and deliberate. You wrap your shawl tighter around your shoulders. The first hour passes quietly. You sip tea, turn the pages of a book you do not read, and try to focus on the simple act of breathing. The city outside sounds muffled, wrapped in fog. Hooves clatter faintly on wet stone. A newspaper boy calls headlines no one can hear. You think of Dr. Felton, his careful voice, his steady eyes. Addiction, delusion, decay. The words had followed you home like the echo of a bell. You had not meant to listen, but they had found a place to root. You glance at the window. Beyond the frost, the world glows dimly, a dull gold through the smog. It has been 4 hours since your last inhalation. Your hands tremble when you lift the teacup. You tell yourself it is only the cold, but the tremor lingers even after the warmth reaches your fingers. The craving begins like a whisper, soft, persuasive. It reminds you that the bottle is only a short walk away, that the chemist will not question you, that it would be easier. Just one breath, one moment of sweetness. You rise instead. You pull on your cloak and step into the corridor, letting the house stretch and sigh around you. Its silence feels almost alive, full of watching. At the bottom of the stairs hangs your husband's portrait, stern, thoughtful, painted just months before the fever took him. His eyes seem to follow you. You pause, your hand resting on the banister. He was the first to call either a gentle reprieve, the first to hand you that gleaming bottle, smiling as if it were kindness. You whisper to the portrait, "I will try, Henry." The painted lips do not answer, but for a moment the silence feels less heavy. The day lengthens. You keep to the sitting room, where the light filters softly through damask curtains. You write letters you do not send. You fold and refold them until the paper creases like fabric. At noon, Clara brings broth and bread. You manage a few sips. By afternoon, your head begins to ache. Not sharply, but with that dull, spreading pain that makes the edges of thought blur. You press your fingertips to your temples and close your eyes. Behind your lids, the light turns liquid, soft hues of silver and lilac, the colors of memory. You see again that field from your dreams, the endless one, bathed in blue, white glow. You are standing at its center. The air there smells faintly of sweetness. In the distance, something shimmers, the curve of a glass bottle catching moonlight. You open your eyes. The fire has burned low. Evening has arrived unnoticed, pale light pooling on the carpet. You hear the clock strike 6, only 12 hours since the last dose. Your body feels hollowed out, not in pain, exactly, but in absence. The world has grown too loud, every sound too sharp, the tick of the clock, the hiss of the coals, the faint rustle of Clara's skirts in the next room. When you stand, the floor seems to tilt slightly. You go to the window, unlatch it, and let in the evening air. London stretches before you, vast, grey, breathing smoke. The scent of the city rushes in, coal, damp stone, horse sweat, human life. Real, imperfect, alive. You breathe deeply, and for a moment it steadies you. Below, on the street, a small boy runs past carrying a folded newspaper. The print smears across his fingers, ink and grime. You wonder what his life feels like, far from these walls, free of drawing rooms and expectations, free of small, sweet bottles. Your hands tremble again. You close the window and sink into the nearest chair. The shawl slips from your shoulders, pooling on the floor. You press your palms to your knees and whisper the words once more, no more. But your voice sounds tired now, the edges frayed. Night deepens. Clara lights the lamps and sets another log on the fire before bidding you good night. You nod, not trusting your voice. When the door closes, you are alone with the silence. And it is then, in that stillness, that you realize how much of your life has been built on the hum that either gave you. The subtle brightening of each sound, the gentle weightlessness in your limbs. Without it, the world feels heavier, unpainted, too real. You sit for hours, the fire dwindles to embers. At some point, you stand and cross the room. Your reflection meets you in the mirror. The same pale woman, eyes darker now, the faintest shadow trembling at her lips. You whisper to her, "It will pass." But she doesn't look convinced. You open the drawer of your writing desk and find the small velvet pouch where the empty bottle lies. You hold it to the light, turning it slowly. Even dry, it catches what little glow remains in the room. You trace the rim with your thumb, and for a moment it feels like forgiveness. But then you set it down. The sound of glass against wood is soft, final. You close the drawer, and for the first time in a very long time, you fall asleep without the ether's breath upon your skin. Your dreams come raw, unlit, unsoftened, but they are yours. When dawn comes, it finds you pale and trembling, but breathing freely. And though the day ahead will be long and uncertain, the air smells, faintly, of possibility. The night dissolves by degrees, as if the fog itself is thinning from within. You wake not with a jolt, but with a drifting sense of unfinished music, a note still trembling somewhere behind your ribs. The fire has gone out. The hearth is a pale mouth, exiling nothing but the smell of yesterday's smoke. You lie still in the chaise by the window, your gown half unfastened, one sleeve fallen down your arm. The silk is creased where you clutched at yourself in sleep. The glass bottle sits open on the table, its stopper rolled a little way onto the rug, glinting faintly like a lost jewel. The world feels 2 shades too bright. Each movement of your eyes is a small ache. Somewhere below, a milk cart rattles, a bell clinks. The street lamps are paling, and the gaslight at the corner sputters into surrender. London begins to stir again, mechanical and tired. You move only when the chill becomes unbearable. Fingers tremble as you pull the shawl higher, eyes tracing the pale seam of light through the curtains. The ether is gone. You can smell it. That absence has its own scent, a hollow sweetness where vapor once lived. You can almost hear it still, the soft hiss of its ghost, as though memory itself releases a faint perfume. You rise at last. The mirror catches you before you're ready. Your face, pale as porcelain, is marked with the faintest bloom of color at the lips, the remnants of some fevered dream. Your eyes are rimmed in delicate red, the skin at your temples drawn thin. And yet, when you tilt your head, when you force the smile, you look almost yourself again. Almost. On the dressing table, the remnants of the night remain, like evidence of a ritual: the bottle, the handkerchief, the comb left mid-stroke, the letter you began and never finished. The paper reads only a few words: "My dearest, I cannot sleep." The house hums like a wire. I think of you often, though I do not know if you exist. You do not remember writing it. By breakfast you are polished and whole again. Mrs. Hatherby lays out the morning tray: toast, eggs, tea, a slice of marmalade cake. The scent is comforting but distant. She does not ask about the faint sound she heard in the night, nor the shadow that lingered beneath your door. Servants in London's great houses are repositories of quiet miracles. They see everything and speak of nothing. "Will you dine with Lord Melbury this evening, ma'am?" You nod. The teacup trembles faintly as you lift it. He has invited you to his estate again, this time for a small circle only. A private continuation of the masquerade. Fewer masks, more trust, or more danger. You find yourself staring at the shelves of your late husband's study, where the dust has begun to settle over his medical texts, Ether and its derivatives, 1848. Principles of surgical anesthesia. Notes upon the application of chemical restoratives in nervous afflictions. The pages whisper when you open them, faintly yellowed, smelling of the same faint sweetness that lingers in your lungs. He once told you that ether lightens the spirit by silencing the flesh, that it opens a brief door to peace. How strange, you think, that peace should need such a door at all. You wrap yourself in a pale wool cloak and step out onto the veranda. The city breathes a low, dull sigh, carriages already rolling toward the squares, the clatter of hoofs, the whistle of a constable at the corner. Above it all, a faint mist clings to the rooftops like gauze. You imagine for a moment that the city itself is under ether's spell, that it inhales and exhales with you, drowsy and glittering, unable to wake. And in that thought is a strange comfort. Perhaps you are not alone in your sleepwalking. By afternoon, the trembling grows worse. It begins in your fingers, a whisper at first, then a pulse. You spill a drop of ink on the calling card you are writing. The letters wobble, your hand refusing the elegant script it once obeyed. Mrs. Eleanor Whitcomb accepts with gratitude the kind invitation of Lord Melbury. You stare at the sentence until it looks like a confession. In the mirror, your reflection shifts slightly, as if time itself lags a fraction of a second behind. You press your fingertips to your temples, close your eyes, and for a brief, blinding instant, the scent returns. A phantom vapor, sweet and chemical, soft as snow. You can almost taste it, and when you open your eyes, the trembling has stopped. Evening descends again, not with grace, but with inevitability. The fog returns from the river, creeping up the streets like memory reclaiming ground. The city lights blur into halos through the window, each one trembling, each one a soft imitation of that other glow, the inner brightness that only ether brings. You know as you dress that you will not last through the night without it. The last vial was gone. The chemist on Harley Street would not open until morning, but at Lord Melbury's there will be decanters and apothecaries enough. He keeps what society calls curiosities, powdered tinctures, exotic vapors, glass bulbs shaped like hearts. He has never denied you what you need. Perhaps he needs it too. Your carriage waits. The streets glisten as though washed in mercury. You breathe in the damp air, heavy with soot and perfume. And though your head is bare of vapor, your mind swims faintly, as if remembering the pattern of the clouds. The bells of St. Martin's toll 8. You close your eyes. The sound feels far away. You are drifting again, not from the ether this time, but from its echo, the space it leaves behind. And in that echo, a whisper lingers. You are almost weightless, almost free. The carriage hums like a heartbeat beneath you. Each turn of the wheel is a whisper against the cobblestones, a soft rhythm to your drifting thoughts. The lamps outside smear across the glass, long ribbons of gold, trembling in the fog. London moves past you like a memory of itself, half erased, half lit. You sit with your hands folded in your lap, gloves pearl white, though your fingers twitch faintly beneath the kid leather. The ache is no longer just in your mind. It travels through your veins like an unfinished song. You try to breathe deeply, to find that cool, steady quiet you once drew from the bottle. But the air here is thick, metallic and real. Tonight you are meant to be yourself again. The charming widow, the hostess, the ornament of restraint and poise. And yet you know somewhere deep in the slow whirl of your thoughts that the act itself is fraying. Lord Melbury's house appears out of the fog like a ship half submerged in cloud. Gas lamps trace the outline of its windows in molten light. The steps are lined with flickering lanterns, their flames bowing in the winter wind. A servant opens the carriage door before you can fully rise. Lady Whitcomb, he murmurs, bowing low. The sound of your name feels distant, as though it belongs to someone else entirely. Inside, the warmth is immediate. Velvet drapes, the low hum of a string quartet somewhere beyond the hall, the scent of roses and tobacco mingling in the air. And beneath it all, that faint, familiar tang. The ghost of ether, sharp and sweet, threaded through the perfume like a secret chord. You pause, one gloved hand resting on the banister. For a heartbeat, your knees nearly give way. The vapor is not imagined. It is here. Someone has been using it, recently. Lord Melbury greets you at the threshold of the grand salon. His mask from the ball is gone, but his smile remains, that perfect courteous curve gleaming in the lamplight. He wears a waistcoat of deep plum velvet, a gold chain glinting against it. Mrs. Whitcomb, he says, you honor us once again. I feared London might have spirited you away. You laugh softly, the kind of laugh that once felt natural, now practiced to a rhythm. London rarely lets go of anyone, my lord. He inclines his head, and his eyes flicker briefly to your trembling hand. Come, we've only a small gathering tonight. You'll find it restorative. That word again, restorative. How easily they use it, these people who drift between luxury and sickness. The guests are few, half a dozen at most. Lady Blakemore reclines upon a divan, her fan fluttering like a bird's wing. Dr. Sebastian Coyle, Melbury's resident physician and philosopher of modern comforts, lounges nearby, glass in hand. The room glows softly with gaslight filtered through amber shades. Music hums low, a waltz too slow to dance to. In the center of it all sits the apparatus, a curious thing of glass and brass tubing, resting upon a low table like a shrine. You recognize it instantly. A vaporizer. more intricate than any you've seen. A silver dome holds a basin of clear liquid, faintly shimmering in the light, ether. The scent rises, delicate, inviting, irresistible. Lord Melbury gestures toward it with mock ceremony. A toy from Paris, he says lightly. They call it Halacha des Anges, the inhaler of angels. The guests laugh softly and knowingly. Lady Blakemore lifts her chin, eyes half closed. I have dreamt in its clouds, she murmurs. The world becomes merciful. You stand motionless. The ache in your veins hums louder now, not pain, not pleasure, but need. Melbury's gaze finds yours again. Will you join us, Eleanor? He asks, and your name, spoken bare, sounds almost tender. You want to refuse, to maintain the last veneer of composure, but your throat tightens, your breath shortens. The scent is too near. A servant steps forward silently, placing beside you a delicate glass mouthpiece, etched with ivy leaves, cool as snow in your hand. You do not remember reaching for it, but you are holding it now. The first breath is shallow, cautious. The vapor enters your lungs like silk and frost. It burns and soothes all at once. The edges of the room begin to melt, shapes blurring, music stretching like honey poured too slowly. Someone is speaking, but the words arrive distant, folded into echo. Liberation of the spirit, a world without consequence. You close your eyes. The warmth begins behind your eyelids, a light swelling pale gold, tender and immense. You are floating again, untethered. The weight of your dress, your grief, your name, all dissolve. When you open your eyes, the salon has transformed. The gaslights flicker like constellations in some dream of the heavens. The guests are wreathed in soft haze, their laughter slowed to the rhythm of breathing. Lord Melbury stands near the window, the city's fog behind him glowing faintly blue. He looks at you, and for a moment, truly sees you. Not as a widow, not as a hostess, but as one of them. A pilgrim of vapor. Time folds in on itself. You do not know how many minutes, or hours, pass in that amber, lit room. Perhaps none at all. The music hums like a pulse through the floorboards. Lady Blakemore's laughter curls into a sigh. Dr. Coyle is speaking again, his words drifting like incense. And you feel nothing and everything. Peace and terror in one breath, the absence of grief, and the grief of its absence. Somewhere deep within, a thought surfaces, that you could stay here forever, suspended between sensation and silence, between the living and the dreaming. You reach for another breath, but the second inhalation tastes different, sharper, colder, tinged with something metallic. The light inside your head flickers, then flares too bright. A sudden dizziness, the edges of the room collapsing inward. Melbury's voice, soft and near, easy now. It takes hold differently the second time. You try to answer, but words scatter before they reach your mouth. The vapor curls around you like a veil. The laughter fades. The floor tilts. Somewhere a clock strikes 10. Each chime reverberates through your bones. And in the instant between the last chime and silence, you see, or think you see, the reflection of yourself in the mirrored cabinet across the room. Your own face, pale and radiant, smiling faintly, even as your body stands perfectly still. The world folds inward again, soft as sleep, merciless as truth. You hear the faint hiss of the vaporizer's breath. You smell the sweetness deepen into something darker. And as your eyes close, you think, perhaps this is what the angels inhale. When you wake, you are standing. The room sways gently around you, chandeliers turning to stars, velvet curtains breathing like lungs. The vapor has thinned, but its sweetness clings to the air, to your skin, to the hollow behind your eyes. Somewhere nearby, a bow drags lazily across a cello string. You do not remember sitting, or standing, or speaking, only that you were there, inhaling light. The vaporizer still hums faintly, its glass chambers pulsing with the last of the ether's glow. Lady Blakemore is half asleep on the divan, her fan resting on the carpet. Lord Melbury leans against the mantel, smiling at nothing. A silver clock ticks somewhere in the background, far too slow, as though time itself is losing patience. And you are floating within yourself, a body made of lace and air. You take one step forward, the floor sighs beneath you. The room smells of burnt roses and cool brass. Every breath tastes faintly of metal. Your gloves feel wrong, too tight, as if they belong to someone else. You pull them off slowly. Beneath the kid leather, your hands are pale, faintly trembling, veins rising like rivers drawn in blue ink. Melbury turns his gaze toward you. You see, he murmurs. It quiets the mind, makes the spirit pliable. His words reach you as if through water. You want to speak, to ask what it is you've seen, what it is he wants to make pliable. But your lips part soundlessly. Dr. Coyle approaches from the shadows. His spectacles gleam. The dosage is impressive, he says softly, as though admiring a sculpture. But her tolerance is clearly profound. They are speaking about you as if you are not there. You realize it doesn't frighten you. It feels, strangely, like relief. Then, a shift. The air grows colder, heavier. A memory rises unbidden. Your husband, James, bending over a similar glass apparatus years ago. His voice steady, instructive. It must be inhaled slowly, my dear. It clears the fog of the mind. For grief, especially. You had believed him. You had needed to believe him. Now his absence feels like another room, one you keep locked but can still smell through the walls. The music fades. Only the whisper of the city remains. Hooves echoing in the fog, a distant shout from some midnight messenger, the sigh of the wind against the glass. Melbury is speaking again, his voice almost tender. We are explorers, Eleanor. The body is only one continent. There are others, within. You close your eyes and his words ripple through you. The ether hums softly in your blood. For a heartbeat, you imagine a dance. The same ballroom from years ago, your husband's hand guiding yours, laughter echoing through the mirrored walls. But when you open your eyes, Melbury stands where James once stood. His hand is extended, waiting. He leads you to the center of the room. The others watch in silence. No music now, only breath. His and yours, rising and falling in slow synchrony. You begin to move. It is not quite a dance, not quite prayer, a slow waltz through thick air, every step a whisper of silk and exhaustion. Your skirts brush against the carpet like low waves. Your head feels impossibly light. You do not know who moves first, you or him, but soon the motion carries you both, round and round, faster, then slower again. When he draws you close, the scent of ether is heavy on his breath. You can see your reflection in his pupils, two ghosts orbiting each other, shimmering, dissolving. A voice breaks the rhythm. Dr. Coyle again, somewhere behind the haze. She's had enough. A Melbury's grip tightens for a moment, not cruel, only desperate. Then he lets go. You stumble slightly, catching the edge of a chair for balance. The music does not return. The silence after the motion is unbearable. You feel suddenly, utterly sober, not in body, but in spirit. The absence of ether is louder than the music had been. Melbury turns away. You'll understand soon, he says. Once you've shed the last of your restraint. But you are already retreating inward, into the sound of your heartbeat, into the ghost of a waltz that refuses to end. Your breath comes shallow and quick. The sweetness in your throat turns sour. You remember your husband's journal, the one hidden beneath the floorboard of your dressing room, the one filled with sketches of lungs and notes about psychic restoration. You remember how he coughed for weeks before he died, how his hands shook when he poured the ether, how his voice trembled when he told you to trust him, and you realize, in this moment of dizzy clarity, that he had not been curing you. He had been testing you. You pull away from the light, from Melbury, from the soft, watching eyes. Your voice trembles as you find it again. I must leave. No one answers. Dr. Coyle adjusts his spectacles. Lady Blakemore murmurs something incoherent in her sleep. The vaporizer hisses its dying breath. You gather your gloves, your shawl, your composure, whatever fragments remain. The night outside is black silk. The cold air bites your skin, sharp and honest. You breathe it in greedily, as though it might wash you clean. The streets are nearly empty now. Snow begins to fall, thin flakes dissolving into the fog before they touch the ground. Each step of your boots sounds like a heartbeat in the stillness. You walk without direction, guided only by the echo of your husband's voice. It clears the fog of the mind. But what if the fog was all that kept you safe? You stop beneath a lamppost. The light hums softly, hallowed in mist. Your hands shake, but you make no move to still them. For the first time in years, you feel every breath, every shiver, every heartbeat. You are not cured, but you are awake, and so you begin again, slow, deliberate steps through the sleeping city. You pass the apothecary on Harley Street, shuttered now, its window displaying rows of blue glass bottles like a choir of ghosts. You know that inside, there are flasks waiting, each one labeled ether in fine copperplate script. 2 shillings an ounce, enough to quiet the storm. You stand there a long moment, the snow melting on your lashes. Then, quietly, you turn away. The air smells of coal and cold iron and faraway chimney smoke. The scent of the living world. You draw it deep into your lungs. It burns, it hurts, it's real. The night holds its breath. The city waits. You walk on, unsteady, unhealed but moving. Somewhere behind you, in Lord Melbury's drawing room, the ether burns to nothing. And in the silence that follows, you hear it. The faintest trace of music, still echoing from the hollow waltz you have just left behind. The sea is the first thing you hear. Not the crash of waves, not yet, only the faint hiss beneath the wind, as if the world itself is exiling after holding its breath for too long. You stand at the edge of the platform, wool cloak drawn close, the last of the train's steam curling around your boots like ghostly lace. It is dawn, though the sun hides shyly behind low clouds. The light is pearled and grey, soft enough to touch. You have not slept. The night has stretched into something endless, made of corridors and thoughts you could not close. Now, as you step into the salt, heavy air of Dover, you feel both lighter and more hollow than you ever have. The streets are quieter here. Gone are the gaslit parlors and perfumed halls. The scent now is brine and tar, the sting of seaweed drying on stone. Fishermen's carts clatter over cobbles slick with frost. The shop signs are hand-painted, peeling from the wind. You walk slowly, your travel trunk thudding softly behind you. The doctor's letters, James's letters, are tucked in the inner pocket of your cloak. You haven't read them since his death, but you couldn't leave them behind. Your body trembles, but it's a clean tremor now. Not the phantom hum of ether, not the residue of vapor, only the body remembering what it means to want. You find lodging at a modest boarding house near the harbour. Mrs. Penmore, the keeper, eyes your fine gloves and wary face with a mixture of curiosity and pity. 2 shillings a night, she says, wiping her hands on her apron. Breakfast at 8. We get the paper from London by the noon post, if you like your news. You nod, though you no longer trust London's words. You hand over the coins and follow her up a narrow staircase, the wood creaking like old bones beneath each step. Your room is small, a single bed, a wash basin, a window that looks out toward the sea, no mirrors, no perfumes, no decanters of amber liquid on the nightstand, only quiet. You close the door behind you and exhale. For a long time you stand there, simply listening to the sound of wind pressing against glass. The first day passes in stillness. You unpack your few things: a shawl, a brush, the letters, a silver locket containing a lock of James's hair. You do not open it, you do not need to. When night falls, you light the small oil lamp by the bed. The flame flutters, soft and human. You lie beneath the coarse wool blanket, waiting for sleep to come. It doesn't. Your hands ache. Your breath catches. Every sound in the building feels too loud. Footsteps in the corridor, a door closing downstairs, the distant call of the sea. You think of the vapor, of how easily it erased moments like this. Then you remember the mirror in Melbury's drawing room, and the strange, serene face that was not entirely your own. You turn onto your side and whisper into the dark, "No more." The words hang there, fragile but real. By morning your resolve feels smaller. The sickness arrives like a tide. You sweat and shiver, your mind flickering through half-formed dreams. You see James's hands mixing solutions, hear his calm voice describing the cloud between consciousness and relief. At midday, Mrs. Penmore knocks softly and leaves tea on a tray outside your door. The steam curls upward, carrying the scent of bergamot. You drink it slowly, the warmth spreading through you like sunlight under ice. It is not the same kind of warmth, but it is enough to keep you breathing. In the afternoon, you walk down to the pier. The sea stretches grey and endless, its rhythm steady and unfeeling. A few gulls wheel above the masts, their cries sharp against the wind. You lean on the railing, watching waves collapse into foam. Somewhere beyond that horizon lies France, the place where Melbury's apparatus was first made, where chemists chase pleasure in gilded laboratories. The thought brings no envy, only exhaustion. Beside you, an old fisherman is mending his net. His hands are cracked, his face carved by wind and time. He glances at you briefly, nods and returns to his work. No questions, no curiosity, just the quiet acceptance of another soul standing in the weather. You find comfort in that. Over the next days, the rhythm settles. You rise early, eat bread and jam by the window, and walk along the cliffs when the fog lifts. You learn the shape of your own breath again, how it sounds when not dulled by vapor, how it feels when air alone must carry the weight. The cravings still come, sudden and sharp, like ghosts tugging at your sleeve, but they pass. Each time you survive them by waiting. You begin to write again, small notes at first, barely legible through your shaking hand. I am here, I remember the sea. I am learning to breathe without sweetness. At night, you sleep in fragments, shallow, broken, but real. One evening, you find yourself drawn to the common room downstairs. A few guests sit by the fire, speaking softly. A little boy plays with a wooden horse, rolling it across the floor in gentle arcs. Mrs. Penmore looks up from her knitting. "You've colour in your cheeks tonight," she says kindly. You smile faintly. "It must be the salt air." She nods, though you both know the air alone cannot explain it. You sit near the fire, feeling its heat seep into your bones. The child looks up at you and offers the toy. You take it, tracing the chipped paint on its flank. For a moment, you imagine James's hands again, but not as they were in the laboratory, as they were long before, steady, kind human. You set the toy gently on the hearth, and something inside you loosens. That night, the sea wind is strong enough to rattle the shutters. You wake once, heart racing, disoriented by the darkness. For a terrible moment you think you smell ether, sweet, cold, seductive. But it's only the salt, only the world. You rise and open the window. The air rushes in, sharp and bracing. The moon breaks briefly through the clouds, casting a pale road of light across the water. You rest your hands on the sill and breathe, once, twice again. Each inhale hurts a little less. Each exhale feels a little more like release. You realize, as the night deepens, that this is your arrival, not the grand return to society you once imagined. Not redemption or glory. Just a quiet room, a sea beyond the window, and the slow rediscovery of yourself. The world has not forgiven you. It hardly noticed you left. But you are here, you are still. And that, for now, is enough. You lie back down, the sound of waves a slow metronome to your heartbeat. The salt air lulls you, steady as prayer. Tomorrow, you might walk the shore again. You might write another sentence. You might even smile. You close your eyes and let the dark fold around you like a blanket of wool and wind. The last thing you feel before sleep takes you is the faint tremor of your pulse, proof that you are alive, awake, and unadorned. The weeks slip by like the tide, not vanishing, but returning in gentler shapes. You no longer count the days since you left London. The calendar means little here, only the weather, the wind, the gradual thaw of frost from the eaves. Your body is still thin, your skin pale, but your steps grow steadier. Each morning you wake before dawn, hearing the gulls begin their quarrel above the rooftops, and for the first time in years you rise not to chase relief, but to greet the day. You pull on your shawl, your breath fogging in the dim air, and light the small oil lamp. The flame's soft hum has become familiar, a quiet companion that asks nothing from you. Downstairs, the boarding house smells of toast and coal smoke. Mrs. Penmore nods when you pass through the hall. She no longer eyes you like a curiosity now, she trusts your silence. You help her with the breakfast trays, not because she asks, but because your hands need purpose. You pour tea, slice bread, fetch the morning paper from the post. The other guests, merchants, widows, travellers between ferries, nod politely. They know nothing of who you were, and that is a mercy. When the work is done, you take your tea to the window seat. The sea lies beyond the rooftops, flat and pewter, grey beneath the low clouds. You sip, taste the faint bitterness, and let your mind drift, not toward the past, but into the stillness between thoughts. One afternoon, a commotion stirs in the hall. Penmore calls your name. You find her bent over a man slumped in a chair, one of the sailors from the docks, his face pale beneath a weak stubble. Collapsed just outside, she says. Favour, I think, or hunger. Lord knows what else. The sight makes your heart jolt. For a moment, the old panic grips you. The kind that once sent you running for the ether bottle to still the tremor in your blood. But there is no bottle now, only your breath. You kneel beside him, take his wrist. His pulse is thready, his skin hot and dry. Water, you say quietly, cool not cold, and a blanket, a Mrs. Penmore fetches them without question. You ease the man back, dampen his forehead, coax him to sip. His lips tremble, but the water goes down. You hear yourself speaking softly, the way James once did when tending his patients. It's all right, you're safe now. Just breathe. The words feel strange on your tongue. Not foreign, but familiar in a way you had forgotten. That evening, as the sailor sleeps, Mrs. Penmore sits beside you by the hearth. You've a steady hand, she says, eyes glinting over her knitting needles. Were you a nurse once? You hesitate. No, but I helped someone who was. A doctor. Wes, the word lands softly like a truth long waiting for air. Mrs. Penmore nods, satisfied. Well, Dover's got no shortage of the ailing. You'd be welcome to lend a hand if you've the mind for it. You smile faintly. Perhaps I might. That night, you fall asleep without dreams. The sea hums beyond the walls, steady as breath. Over the following days, the sailor, Thomas, regains his strength. He tells you he'd been stranded between voyages, working odd jobs on the docks, sleeping in cold sheds when the taverns turned him out. Fever caught him after a week of rain. You listen, tending to the small burns on his hands, the salt cracks on his skin. You brew tea with crushed willow bark for the pain, just as James taught you years ago. When he thanks you, you shake your head. It's only kindness, you say. It costs less than the world thinks. He grins, the first spark of humor you've seen in weeks. Then it's worth more than gold. Spring arrives slowly. The cliffs bloom with wild mustard and sea campion, pale pink and yellow against the grass. You take to walking along the paths above the harbour, carrying a small satchel of herbs, poultices, and scraps of bandage. Word spreads quietly among the townsfolk, the gentle lady from the boarding house who knows the old remedies. They come to you in ones and twos. A mother with a child's cough, A fisherman with frostbite, a laundress with raw hands. You charge nothing. You listen. You brew, you wrap, you soothe. And though part of you still aches, for what you lost, for what you destroyed, another part begins to warm. It is not redemption, not yet. But it is something like living. Sometimes, when the sea mist rolls thick and the wind carries the scent of chemicals from the harbor's distilleries, you feel the old hunger stir again. The memory of sweetness, of escape. Your hands tremble, your heart races. Your mind whispers just once, to quiet the noise. When that happens, you light your lamp and open one of James's letters. You read the lines written in his careful hand, the same hand that once guided yours. The essence of healing is not in the medicine, Eleanor, but in the willingness to face pain without surrendering to it. You close the letter, you breathe, and you wait. The craving passes, like a storm moving out to sea. By midsummer, you are no longer just a guest at the boarding house. You are its quiet heart. You mend linens, soothe tempers, tend small wounds. At dusk, you sit by the window, the lamplight painting your hands gold, and you write in the small leather notebook you keep beside the bed, I no longer chase oblivion. I chase stillness. And sometimes, stillness finds me first. One evening, as the last light fades, you walk down to the pier. The water glows with sunset, rose, amber, silver. A steamer whistles in the distance, bound for Calais. You realize you could leave if you wished. You could cross the channel, begin again somewhere new. But the thought doesn't stir restlessness, only calm. You sit on a worn bench, watching the waves turn to glass. The wind tangles your hair, and you let it. The sea no longer feels like escape. It feels like home. You close your eyes and whisper, James, I made it. The words drift out, caught by the wind, lost to the horizon. But somehow, you feel he hears. It happens on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind that feels suspended between seasons. Mist has rolled in from the sea, wrapping Dover in a hush so thick it seems even the gulls have forgotten to cry. You rise early, as you always do now, dress in wool and lace, pin your hair, light the lamp. The ritual steadies you. But today, there is something different in the air. A stillness with edges, a waiting. While tidying your room, you open the drawer of your small writing desk, the one that holds your letters, herbs, and small keepsakes. Beneath a folded shawl, your hand brushes something rigid familiar. An envelope. You frown. You had thought the letters were all read, all tucked away in the little tin by your bedside. But this one is different. Sealed, its paper yellowed and frayed at the corners, the ink faint but unmistakable, Eleanor. Your name in James's handwriting. Your pulse stumbles. You trace the letters with a fingertip, as though he might feel it somewhere beyond the veil of years. The seal cracks softly beneath your thumb. Inside is a single sheet, folded twice. The writing is shaky, not his usual precision, as if he'd written in haste or pain. You sit by the window, the letter trembling between your hands. Outside, the mist clings to the glass like breath. You begin to read. My dearest Eleanor, if you find this, it means my words outlived me, as I hoped they might. There are things I did not say, things I feared to speak aloud, though you must have sensed them in the quiet between us. I gave you ether not to save you, but to still you, to silence what I did not know how to comfort. I see now what harm was done by kindness born of cowardice. I told myself it was mercy, but mercy without truth is only delay. When I first used ether on my patients, I marveled at its power, how swiftly it erased agony. But I came to see that pain, though cruel, is part of the body's way of living. To numb it entirely is to unmake the self. I saw that in them, and later in you, and in myself. If I could return, I would tell you this healing is not the absence of pain, Eleanor. It is the presence of love that endures it. You once asked me, half in jest, if souls can feel each other after death. I told you, no, that I believed only in science, in flesh and air and nerve. I was wrong. Even now, I feel you. And I hope you feel me too, in the quiet after the sea's last wave. Do not mourn the years we lost to the fog. They were the price of waking. You are awake now. Breathe for both of us. Yours always, James. You read it once, then again, then a third time slower, as though each word might dissolve if you blink too soon. Tears fall soundlessly. Not from grief, not anymore, but from release. They feel like thawing ice, melting into your lap. You fold the letter gently, press it to your chest. The air feels different now, lighter, as though a window somewhere inside you has opened. The mist outside shifts, thin threads of silver weaving apart to reveal the faint shimmer of sea beyond. You think of him, standing at the edge of that light. You think of yourself, still here, still breathing. You whisper, I do feel you. The next days drift like silk. You carry James's letter with you, folded into the pocket of your dress. Sometimes when the ache of memory tightens in your chest, you touch the paper and feel the calm return, Not from the words, but from what they mean. That love, once true, never dies. It only changes shape. At dusk, you begin to write again. Not in your journal this time, but on new paper, crisp, white, uncreased. A letter. My dearest James, you were right. Pain is not to be fled from. It is to be held, tended, and transformed. I have learned to breathe again. Not through ether's hush, but through the air itself. It stings sometimes, and that is how I know I am alive. The world is smaller now, and kinder. I think you would like it. I will not send this, but I will keep it as you kept faith that I might one day wake. Rest easy, my love. I am home. You fold it, seal it, and place it beside his. No shrine, no ceremony, just quiet, simple keeping. That evening, you walk down to the shore. The sky is pale lavender, the water smooth as glass. The horizon glows. Faint gold where the sun has gone. You stand barefoot at the tide's edge, the chill biting pleasantly at your skin. The waves curl around your feet, retreat, return. You breathe, slow, deep, present. The air tastes clean, salt and life. And in that moment, for the first time in so many years, you realize you no longer crave escape. You crave only peace. The sea answers in a whisper, you have found it. The years pass as gently as waves reshaping sand. You scarcely notice at first. The slow drift of seasons, the fading of faces in the village, the way fashion changes in the shop windows when you take the ferry back to London once a year. The city you once knew hums differently now. The gas lamps are being replaced by electric light. The carriages give way to noisy motorcars that rattle past the old marble facades of Harley Street. The chemist where you once bought either is gone. In its place, a florist overrun with lilies and forget-me-nots. You stand outside for a while, watching the florist boy sweep petals into a dustpan. He hums a tune you don't recognize. His face is young, open, utterly untouched by the kind of hunger that once lived behind your smile. You feel a quiet ache of gratitude, not envy. Gratitude that the world moves on. That forgetting is, sometimes, mercy. Inside your bag, folded between the pages of a well-worn book, James's letter rests. The paper has yellowed more, the ink faded to a shade between brown and gold. You no longer need to read it. You know every word by heart. You spend your later years by the sea. The small cottage in Dover becomes your sanctuary, its walls whitewashed, its shelves lined with shells, its windows always cracked open to the wind. You take in boarders, occasionally sailors, school teachers, widows passing through. They bring their own quiet sorrows, and you make them tea, listen, nod. You have learned the art of holding silence the way others hold prayer. Sometimes at night when the mist rolls in, you sit by the window and light a single lamp. Its flame is no brighter than a star, but it's enough to keep the darkness kind. The smell of salt mixes with the faint scent of old lilac perfume. One of the last bottles from London, now more memory than fragrance. You breathe it in and feel the years settle softly across your shoulders, not as weight, but as warmth. Every now and then, you dream, not of ether. Those dreams ended long ago. Now you dream of small things, of sunlight flickering through lace curtains, of letters written in a firm, careful hand, of the sound of your own laughter mingling with someone else's in a garden of pale lilacs. The dream never lasts long. It ebbs like the tide, leaving you calm and still. But the scent always lingers when you wake, and the morning light through your curtains glows the same soft gold as the ballroom lamps from another lifetime. One autumn evening, a storm rolls in from the channel. The wind howls around the shutters, but you do not close them. You've always liked the sound, the way it reminds you that the world is alive, restless, eternal. You light your lamp, pour a cup of tea, and sit by the window. The sea is invisible now, only the sound of it remains, deep and rhythmic, like breathing. You take James's letter from its place in the book. The paper crackles faintly in your hands. You trace his signature one last time, and then, slowly, you fold it again and set it by the window, where the lamplight can reach it. Outside, the storm's roar softens. The rain becomes a whisper against the glass. You close your eyes. You remember Harley Street, the faint hiss of gaslight, the polished brass of your husband's instruments, the clinking of glass vials. You remember Mayfair parlors filled with perfume and laughter, the shimmer of gowns and the first sweet burn of ether cooling your lungs. You remember losing yourself and finding yourself again. Each memory feels distant now, like constellations fading behind morning light. You see them clearly, but they no longer pull you. You smile. You think it was all just weather. Storms that passed, clouds that lifted. And you, still here, still breathing, still watching the horizon turn from grey to gold. When dawn comes, the sky is clear. You step outside barefoot, the boards of the porch cool beneath your feet. The sea glitters with pale light, calm again after the storm. You walk down to where the tide meets the sand. The water laps around your ankles, cold, clean, alive. You whisper a quiet thank you. To the sea, to the years, to the pain that once was. And for a moment, the wind carries the faintest trace of lilac through the salt air. You close your eyes, breathe it in, and feel the world fold gently around you. That night, before sleep, you write a single line in your journal. The last page, all that was broken, became part of the light. You close the book, set it by the lamp. The sea hums softly in the distance. You lie down, your hand resting loosely over your heart, the sound of the tide keeping time with your breath. And when your eyes finally close, it feels not like ending, but like remembering something very old. The rhythm of the sea, the kindness of the dark, the slow, sure way the world forgives itself. Settle in now. The storm has passed. The cottage is warm again, the air tinged with salt and faint lilac, the scent lingering like memory made visible. The lamp burns low, a small, steady flame, breathing softly against the glass. You lie beneath a patchwork quilt, the kind sewn from remnants of other lives, an old silk sleeve, a strip of curtain fabric, a square of linen from one of James's shirts. Each piece carries its own quiet story, stitched into something whole. The sea murmurs through the open window. The waves come and go, slow, patient, eternal, whispering to the sand in a language older than grief. You listen, you breathe in time with it. The rhythm is familiar, as if the world is cradling you in its tide. Your hands rest still upon your chest. You feel the gentle flutter there, the pulse that has carried you through every winter, every breath of ether, every heartbeat of waking. It feels lighter now, quieter. The lamp flickers. Shadows climb softly up the walls, pooling in the corners like spilled ink. But the darkness doesn't frighten you anymore. It feels benevolent, like the night itself has come to keep you company. Outside, the horizon glows faintly, a soft wash of silver where moonlight meets mist. The tide hushes against the rocks. Somewhere, a bell rings once from a passing ship. You think of all the lives you've lived. The woman in silk at the masquerade, the trembling widow with a vial hidden beneath her pillow, the seeker who wandered through fog and found her way home by the sound of the sea. You have been all of them. And now, you are something gentler. The space between heartbeats, the quiet between waves. You turn your head toward the window. The sky beyond it seems vast, 1,000 shades of blue that melt into one another. You can almost see him there, not as a ghost, but as a glimmer, the outline of warmth in the air. He does not speak. He doesn't need to. The sea breathes in. The sea breathes out. You close your eyes, and the last of the lamplight slips across your face like a blessing. The wind moves through the curtains, slow and sighing. The scent of lilac returns, faint, endless, eternal. You exhale once, the tide pauses, the room holds its breath with you. And in that stillness, the kind that feels like the moment before dawn, something vast and merciful opens. You feel yourself drift, not away but through, into warmth, into light, into the hush that holds every story ever told. The sea hums one last note, and the sound becomes the sky. You made it, and now you rest.